it out. Well, thank you. Have to play Wordle.
Good morning. Good morning, T-Sippers. Hey,
Yeah,
Max.
Gina, a lot happening yesterday. It was a quick moving day. A lot of things taking place, in fact, before the noon lunch break. But after prosecutors wrapped up their opening statements, they told jurors to prepare to hear about nearly 3 decades of the defendant's crimes and more also about his inner circle who allegedly enabled him. We also heard from a publicist for Sean Diddy Combs who said that he is feeling optimistic considering his family is here to support him. Combs' family, including his mother Janice, plus his 3 sons and twin daughters, all arrived at the courthouse yesterday morning. His children stepped out of a black van holding hands. Prosecutors called their first witness to the stand, Israel Flores. He's now an officer for the LAPD, but in March of 2016, he was assistant director of security at a Los Angeles hotel when he got a call that a woman was in distress on the 6th floor. That woman was R&B singer and Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. Prosecutors showed jurors the now infamous video of Combs kicking and dragging Ventura down the hallway. Flores testified that he recorded the hotel's video of the attack on his cell phone. Prosecutors have maintained that the video is a key piece of evidence. The second witness was a male escort named Daniel Phillip, who testified that he was paid $700 to $6,000 to have sex with Ventura while Combs watched and gave instructions, with the very first encounter happening in 2012. Phillip told jurors he stopped participating after he saw Combs throw a bottle at Ventura and then drag her by her hair into a bedroom as she screamed, saying he too feared for his life. As Phillip went into the details, Combs' daughters left the courtroom twice during the most graphic moments. Singer-songwriter Jaguar Wright said she came here to support the victims and briefly spoke outside the federal courthouse yesterday.
Jay-Z may be next.
And before court finished for the day, the judge reminded the jurors, by the way, who are 8 men and 4 women that'll all remain anonymous, to not speak about this case once they left. And court resumes at 9 o'clock this morning with cross-examination of Phillip first, followed by Ventura's testimony. The delay is so bad.
She had the heebie-jeebies, huh? Not understanding Cassie on the stand today. Telling all they business. Be naive. And that was that people say be naive. Hey, Cynthia. Girl, say something.
Minute away, minute away. I pick up my hangnail here. No fingernails. prosecutors wrapped up their opening statements. They told jurors to prepare to hear about nearly 3 decades of defendant's crimes, and this could be also key in learning more about his inner circle, which prosecutors say more about his inner circle, who allegedly enabled him. Sean Diddy Combs' publicist said he's been staying positive, very optimistic, considering his family has been here. What should I eat for breakfast? Encounter happening back in 2012. Philip told jurors
in the wall, holding up a shelf. Prince, thanking you. And I mean, I guess because they took the panel off, because they buttoned all the plates up. Here goes the camera. I said, thank you. Took it out again. It's like I got my apple box. Them ships is not shipping. You look at Amazon, it's over $110 for ships. Yes.
I don't understand this shit. Hey, Willie.
the 8 men and 4 women were seated on panel. After that, prosecutors and defense attorneys completed their opening statements. Okie dokes. Kurt and Rosanna, good morning to both of you. And that testimony, from Cassie Ventura could be a gut-wrenching and graphic one, considering she is pregnant right now. And again, that disturbing video replaying in our minds from 2016 that has been aired on so many news outlets and in the media. But for a moment, we can backtrack to yesterday, because it was a pretty big day here at court. Things moved rather quickly in the courtroom. First, a jury was seated, 8 men and 4 women. After that, prosecutors and defense attorneys delivered their opening statements. All of that wrapping up before noon. And we also heard from a publicist for Sean Diddy Combs, who explained how he was feeling, saying that he is quite optimistic going into this trial. Combs's family, including his mother Janice, plus his 3 sons and twin daughters, they all arrived at the courthouse yesterday morning. His children stepped out of a black van holding hands. Prosecutors called their first witness to the stand, Israel Flores. He's now an officer for the LAPD, but in March of 2016, he was assistant director of security at a Los Angeles hotel when he got a call that a woman was in distress on the 6th floor. That woman was R&B singer and Combs's ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. Prosecutors showed jurors the now infamous video of Combs kicking and dragging her down the hallway. Flores testified that he recorded the hotel's video of the attack on his cell phone. Prosecutors have maintained that the video is a key piece of evidence. The second witness was a male escort named Daniel Phillip, who testified that he was paid $700 to $6,000 to have sex with Ventura while Combs watched and gave instructions, with their first encounter happening back in 2012. Phillip told jurors he stopped participating after he saw Combs throw a bottle at Ventura and then drag her by her hair into a bedroom as she screamed, saying he too feared for his life. As Phillip went into the details, Combs's daughters left the courtroom twice during the most graphic moments. Singer-songwriter Jaguar Wright said she came to support the victims and briefly spoke outside the federal courthouse. Another thing to note, as people were leaving the courthouse yesterday evening, others were already waiting to snag a spot for today. And over my shoulder right now, the line outside this federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan is still long, all the way down the block. Typically, the doors open momentarily and people start to be allowed in to the courtroom. Again, though, no phones, so the only images we are really getting from inside are sketches from artists. But Kurt and Rosanna, that's the latest. We'll send it back to you. Thank you. Are they letting people in yet? No? They are, right? It's moving.
Yeah.
So who's outside right now? Is it supporters? Just people standing?
I don't know who those people are over there.
I don't know either.
I'm gonna walk over after this.
I'm not even, maybe I won't mention it in the next tip. All right, I'll just use this intro and tag instead. feel like a network reporter now.
Hi, what's up?
Okay, this.
Drop today, brother. Drop now. See you, man. Forget like you, man. Drop. You got a suit on today. Looking sharp. Old time. You got to be minded to bring out the time. Old time. That's all right. That's all I gotta do. As long as I ain't in y'all shot.
Is there any message for the alleged victims? Do you still believe that that's innocent? Do you believe your father's innocent? Do you still convinced your father's innocent? Do you apologize on behalf of your father? Any message for the alleged victims? Any message for the alleged victims?
Just to update, kind of sensitive, and so stop and sort of think about what they're saying there. His music empire as a cover for organized abuse and exploitation. So here we have Sean Combs, who is one of the most influential music figures of the last 30 years, to say the least, from the mid-1990s until maybe a little closer to today. And we know that they're saying that a lot of this was a cover for a criminal organization, which, when you really think about it, is a serious allegation. Their defense, Diddy's defense, they claim that all relationships were consensual, and they acknowledge that maybe Combs did have a domestic violence situation here, did act recklessly at time, but they argued none of it rose to the level of federal crimes, asserting that the women involved were adults who made personal choices. So here we have the prosecution laying out their statements. They want to tell a story. They want to lay out this story in a narrative fashion, in a timeline. They're going to present this evidence. They're going to present this video. They're going to present some text messages, witness testimony, and they're going to tell a story. At the same time, the defense, they will have their opportunity to try and pick apart that story and insert their narrative here and there. Things started very, you could call it explosive testimony right off the very beginning. Witness testimony came from a man named Daniel Phillip. He testified that he was hired to engage in sex acts with Cassie while Combs watched and participated. He also recalled seeing Combs assault Cassie in a hotel hallway, an event recorded on surveillance video that was shown to the jury. Now, this is the video that a lot of people have seen at this point, and so it is going to be at the heart of the case, and it is something that was debated about whether or not it could actually be included. Now, the defense said, okay, well, we may acknowledge that there was a domestic incident here, but this domestic incident isn't this federal crime that you're saying, so that's part of what they're already sort of laying out. And a man named Israel Flores also testified. Now, he's a former bodyguard who claimed Combs offered him money to keep quiet about that 2016 hotel incident. He said he offered him a stack of cash, and he described the culture of control and fear all surrounding Combs. So if we could talk a little bit about that key evidence, the hotel video. So the jury, they were actually shown that 2016 surveillance video of Combs, that video that just to show him assaulting Cassie Ventura, the footage, the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. And really they showed it because they want to show it and demonstrate a pattern of abuse and control. Sort of setting the scene for what things looked like in the courtroom yesterday. Combs' appearance. He entered the court. His hair was graying, and he engaged with his defense team, and he turned around, exchanged smiles with family members who were seated behind him. We know that at some points during the testimony yesterday that his family members sort of became visibly upset. Some of them, his daughters actually had to leave the courtroom because of the sexual acts that were being described involving their father. And so his mother, Diddy's mother, and his 6 children, all present in the courtroom, offering their support despite some of those disturbing allegations. That's just the first day. So again, jury seated, sworn in the morning, opening statements, defense arguments already. Then we heard from these 2 key witnesses. Daniel Phillip, he's the one who testified that he was basically an escort who was hired to perform these lewd sexual acts with Cassie, and Diddy was watching. And then Israel Flores, another individual, former bodyguard, who said that Combs actually offered him money to stay quiet about that video. So those were the 2 initial witnesses. The witness we're expecting to testify today is going to be Cassie Ventura. Cassie is a singer in her own regard, a successful music career, and was also Diddy's girlfriend at the time, now ex-girlfriend. She is the central witness in the prosecution's case. And so what do we think she's going to testify about and testify to? Well, Ventura is expected to testify about her experiences with Combs, including those allegations of physical abuse, coercion, and participation in what the prosecution and what she will likely describe as non-consensual acts. Her testimony, they're going to try to establish a pattern of behavior central to the prosecution's argument that Combs operated this criminal enterprise involving sex trafficking and abuse. There's a lot that sort of goes in this, and I'm just trying to summarize because we're expecting that she will be testifying for not just today, not just for a couple hours, but maybe for 2 or 3, maybe even 4 or 5 days. Keep in mind that she is pregnant. There's some photos that emerged or were shown of her recently, so she's extremely pregnant. And so that will certainly play into her physical appearance in the courtroom and maybe how long she can actually sit on the stand before they have to take a break. So keep that in mind when you start to hear some of...
Meet Sam. Every day starts with his morning routine. Like many of us, Sam loves his
actions and evidence. November 2023, a critical time here. That's when Ventura filed a lawsuit against Combs alleging rape, sex trafficking, and physical abuse. Understanding was that was settled shortly after, but that's significant because that is when some of these rumors that we were hearing, for years, actually really started to bubble up into something that could become more significant. And that 2016 surveillance video showing Combs allegedly assaulting Ventura in a hotel hallway was sort of first viewed by the public, and it was a major headline. At some point, Diddy had to come out and apologize for what happened there. All of that leading up to his eventual arrest. So I'm just sort of checking through a lot of stuff. I know some people have some questions. So if we had anything, it's interesting. The question is how is the video not a crime? And Diddy's team is essentially saying here, we're not saying it's not a crime. We're not saying that that's not domestic violence. We're not saying that that's not, an assault on this individual. But his defense sort of strategy has been that that's not the crime that he's facing. The crime that he's facing is a racketeering charge, a RICO allegation. The crime he's facing has to do with kidnapping, and so that's part of what they're going to be talking about. And so when she testifies, they're not going to shy away from showing that video. They already have. And so what we think is going to happen here, when you're the prosecutor and you're the prosecution, you want the jury to be able to sympathize with your side of the story. Obviously, you're trying to convince them of your case. So what they want is to establish an emotional connection with the jury. And they think Cassie Ventura will be able to do that because her story is so powerful. So prosecutors are going to begin with some foundational questions with her about how Ventura met Combs, the timeline of their relationship, what initially drew her in. They'll likely use kind of like open-ended conversational questions to try and humanize her, making it easier for the jury to kind of identify with her. So that's going to be sort of one of the first steps that we have here. And then one other thing before we maybe get to another question, if there is, we know that they're going to build a chronological narrative. They're going to be looking at a timeline. It's important in all these cases to establish a timeline. When was the first incident alleged to have occurred, and is it something that just sort of happened out of nowhere, or was it a part of a timeline of events that happened continuously over and over and over and over again? And that's the key part of the prosecution's case. So the questions will follow a timeline from the beginning of the relationship to its decline, emphasizing a pattern of escalating abuse and control. That's what the prosecution is going to say. Step-by-step account, reinforcing the idea that the abuse wasn't isolated or accidental, but that it was systemic and calculated. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, I mean, the question that we saw is, what about Diddy's apology video? And that's true. Diddy did put out that apology video that came out directly afterward. And so, and sometimes in the news business, it's sometimes hard to, if you're not the one who obtained the video, right? So CNN is the one who initially had that video as their exclusive. And so for a lot of other news outlets, can you verify the authenticity of the video? You have to sort of figure out a way to get your own way of making sure that that is Diddy in the video. Well, then Diddy comes out and he apologizes for the video and the actions that happen in the video. So in some ways, he is acknowledging that that's him in the video, without some reporters having to check in with this and check in with that. I mean, Diddy is acknowledging that that's him in the video. He said he was disgusted with himself and disgusted with what happened there. So that was a significant moment in this entire investigation, because that was one of the first times that Diddy had publicly acknowledged just the wrongdoing involved here. And keep in mind that at this point, for Diddy, it wasn't too long before that video had come out, right around the same time, that he was actually given the keys to New York City.
You ain't never lied.
In a sort of symbolic gesture because of his influence. He had just opened up a charter school in the city. So this is someone who, of course, is, not just a music icon, but a New York City icon. Him in the East Coast rap music of the time in the early days, and of course his spin-offs for some of the different projects that he did, incredibly influential over the course of time. And so when he comes out and puts that video to apologize for what happened, maybe he was hoping he could get ahead of it, put a lid on it, and it would end there. Turns out that was just part of the escalation before the FBI and everyone else raided his house, took away all that evidence, the boxes of evidence that they took from his homes in Florida and Los Angeles, Florida and California, and now here we are at this moment where we are right now. So okay, so let's keep moving forward with some of what else we expect will be happening today. Big moment will be Cassie Ventura testifying. So in addition to establishing an emotional connection with the jury, trying to build this chronological narrative of when things happened, how they happened, who was there, we also may see the introduction of certain kind of language in a way. Maybe they're going to ask her to describe situations where the words, the key words that you want to listen for in the reporting are words like forced, afraid, no choice, controlled, manipulated. Manipulated, controlled, no choice, afraid, forced. Keep in mind those words when you start to hear some of the reporting coming out, because those are keywords to establish kidnapping in some of the different sex acts that are accused here, and they'll likely avoid sort of like the legalistic phrasing of it. The way that it may be noted in the actual indictment itself, but just sort of the everyday way you might describe it. Were you afraid? Did you feel like you could leave? Did you feel like you were allowed to do certain things? No, you were being controlled. Okay, that's manipulated. Okay, so that's kind of where we're going to see it there. And then, of course, they're going to want her to detail specific incidents with supporting evidence. So they're going to really anchor her testimony to key events already introduced in court. That video, 2016, the freak-offs, orchestrated sexual encounters, bolstered by some other witness testimony. So we heard on that first day the individual Daniel Phillip who testified about those sex acts. Yes, here we go. And that's a good point. Why did Cassie not take him to court? Not sue him sooner. So that's a good point, because that's something that I wanted to get to here, because the defense will, of course, they'll have their chance to respond, and so after the prosecution will lay out their case, the prosecution wants the jury to take away a couple key factors. That Cassie Ventura didn't consent, she complied out of fear. Sean Combs wasn't just a bad partner, he was manipulative and abusive, an orchestrator of criminal operation. This was not a broken relationship, it was about power, profit, and exploitation. That's what the prosecution wants to get across. So what does the defense want to get across on their side? Well, they want to undermine her credibility. So likely they'll highlight the settlement in 2023, the civil suit, and they'll imply that there was financial motive involved there. No doubt about it. They're going to bring that up. They're going to talk about that. They're going to ask how much was involved. Probably along the way, there's going to be a lot of objections from the prosecution, but the defense is really going to press forward with that case. They're going to suggest inconsistencies between her lawsuit, interviews, and her current testimony. So, when you have those lawsuits, depending on how far it got, you'll have a deposition. And a deposition is where you'll have sworn or said something under oath. And so you have that record. That record will be there. The attorneys for the defense will have that there, and they will likely introduce that into evidence. So that when she testifies in court today, tomorrow, the next day, if there's an inconsistency between what she testified to during the deposition of her civil suit, between what she's talking about today in her criminal suit, they're going to point out those discrepancies. And maybe it was a mistake, maybe it's something else, but if they can make enough of that, maybe it sways a juror, maybe it influences a juror to think, well, what's really going on here? They're also likely the defense will likely, I hope that kind of answers the question, a little bit there. Anything else we want to kind of hit on there? I got another key point I was going to try to test. And of course, I mean, if you're a defense attorney and you have a situation like this, which is so sensitive and so unique in a sense, given who Diddy is, who Cassie is, and the nature of their high-profile relationship. I mean, this isn't just sort of like a boyfriend and girlfriend. These were people who were photographed every time they went outside. And so the defense is also going to try to reframe their relationship as consensual. They're going to ask about instances where she stayed with Combs voluntarily. Maybe they went on vacation. Maybe she got a gift. Maybe they were in a public appearance together. And so they're going to be able to cite these examples without a doubt. If that did happen, there's going to be receipts of a vacation that was maybe taken, a gift that was given, and certainly if an alleged incident is supposed to have happened on this date, and 2 months later there's a public appearance together, the defense will say, well, this is a consensual relationship. You weren't forced to stay there. And they're going to suggest that there was coaching or manipulation maybe by the prosecution. Did you meet with the prosecutors before? Have you had a chance to do this? Have you had a chance to do that? Those kind of questions always come up. And then the question, how long she waited to report. So float the idea that her story had been shaped or encouraged by outside influences. So whether it's true or not, that's what they're going to do. And really, part of what they're going to do, and it's a very sensitive situation when you have someone who's a victim of domestic violence, who really by both sides, nobody is not arguing that Cassie in that video wasn't the victim of domestic violence. I mean, even Diddy acknowledged it. But they're going to try to paint Diddy as a victim here. That he's the alleged incidents where Combs was harmed or controlled by Ventura. They're going to try to flip the script a little bit. And they're going to suggest that the dynamic was mutual and not one-sided. They're going to try to downplay those freak-offs. They're going to say, look, maybe that's not what you're into. Maybe you're not in a position to have something like that, but that doesn't make it a crime. So that's certainly going to be part of what they say. Emphasize her age, the lifestyle that they live together, and they're going to say she was a willing participant in everything that happened. So the prosecution, they're going to try to make this connection. The defense is going to try to make it.
But at any point she was ready to leave and didn't want to do it, she should have been able to stop, and he dragged her ass back in there.
Out of fear, and that this was power, this was profit, this was exploitation. At the same time, the defense is going to try to plant reasonable doubt about the non-consensual nature of the relationship without appearing to attack her character too aggressively, which could alienate the jury. Very fine line between attacking the character of a potential domestic violence victim and trying to point out inconsistencies in her stories, where maybe what she said in the deposition is different than what she is now testifying to in court. So those are some of the things that you really want to keep your eye on as you're watching some of the developments that come out today. So I just want to sort of reset the scene. It's 10:50. We know that the judge has said he's likely to approve media requests to view videos described as pornographic, which will be shown to the jury. He's giving both sides another day to submit arguments, aiming to balance privacy with public access to the trial. Okay, so what does that mean? A lot of times, the defense and the prosecutors will present different pieces of evidence to the judge while the jury is not in the box, and while the things that the jury is not allowed to hear, because they're not sure if it's going to be part of the case or not. They're not sure if this piece of evidence is going to be entered into testimony. There may be a video that the prosecutor wants to show that the defense is going to say, well, we didn't get a chance to view this video and authenticate that it's real yet, so you can't introduce this. And the prosecutor might make an argument, the judge is going to listen to that argument, and then the judge is going to decide one way or the other if that's going to be entered into evidence. That'll happen when the jury is not there. If it is entered into evidence, then what the judge is also saying is that at some point, maybe even soon, the day of the different testimony, that the public, you, me, the media, TV, all the web sleuths out there, everyone commenting on our YouTube page, and thank you for watching our YouTube page, you'll be able to see it too.
Just a moment,
analyze some of
y'all.
this stuff.
I'm trying to find another spot that's giving more details. Because that ain't it.
Why aren't we getting any photos or...
Welcome to TMZ Live. Harvey Levin here. Charles here. Okay, here's what's going on with Diddy. So the court actually adjourned early today, and there are...
Oh, where is the T?
Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Opening arguments were set to begin today in a highly anticipated federal
This was
trial for
yesterday.
hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Combs has been accused of sex trafficking by force, transportation to engage in prostitution, and racketeering conspiracy as part of a federal indictment originally filed in September of last year. The feds later added 2 more superseding indictments. Combs and his legal team have pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. Joining me now to break this all down is a friend of the program. He's an outstanding attorney who moonlights as a sports center anchor for ESPN. He's also a legal analyst for ABC News, all over the Disney family. The one and only Ryan Smith is right here with yours truly. Ryan, always good to see you, my brother. Always good to see you. Let's get right to it. The trial started today with 6 female prosecutors presenting the case against Combs. What impact, if any, could that have on a jury?
Well, that has a big impact. And the goal of that is not only to use some of the top prosecutors in the land to prosecute the case, but it's also to show that this case is not just about Sean Diddy Combs, but it's about what he did to primarily women. And when you show that kind of front in the prosecution, all women prosecution team prosecuting this case, it focuses the jury for prosecutors on what they want them to be focused on. This was a man who elements of the crime, but racketeering is not about that. This kind of charge of conspiracy is not about that. It's about a man who used his power to force women into sexual situations. And so that is part of what they're trying to show. But I don't want it to be missed in all this, Stephen A., that these are some of the top prosecutors in the land. So I think sometimes there's a tendency to say, oh, it's all women, they're doing that to put on a show. No, they're using some of the best prosecutors in the land to make the case by their presence that this is about holding someone accountable.
Okay, Ryan, you said top prosecutors in the land. That resonated with me. Because is that to imply these ain't just the top prosecutors in New York? This is not a local thing. They went all over the country and got the 6 of the best prosecutors in the country who happen to be female. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's more like the prosecutors in New York. The New York office is one of the best in the world. And so these are their best. These are their top. These are people who have handled cases like Ghislaine Maxwell, connected to the Epstein case. That's the lead prosecutor in this case, handled that case. So these are some of the best women in some of the best office in the world.
Break down the demographics, the dynamics and the demographics of this jury. How many females, how many males, how many blacks, how many whites? What can you tell us about the actual jury and the alternates that have been assigned to this case?
Yeah, you've got the full jury, you've got 6 alternates. They're a bit all over the map. And I think that's what you want in a case like this. Men and women, different hues, different colors, different races, but they also come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Some come from different higher level jobs. There's one juror who's a clerk at a store in New York. So I think that's what prosecutors wanted to paint here, a broad swath of New York society, of people who are there to try to judge this case. It can be an advantage for prosecutors. It can also be an advantage for the defense, because the defense can look at this and say, we are going to try in many ways to show you that Sean Combs might not be a great guy, might be a jerk, might be angry, might have committed domestic violence, but was he a racketeer? Was he someone who we should hold accountable for what the prosecution is saying? So this jury is a diverse, broad swath of people in New York, but we will see how that plays out on either side.
One of the things I'm looking at right now, this is called the fresh CNN update. I wanted to know what you could validate, what you can elaborate upon, if at all. It says the jury was shown additional footage from the hotel hallway. The jury is being shown footage from the north hallway of the 6th floor of the Intercontinental Hotel. This is where P. Diddy ran out in the hallway with just a towel wrapped around himself, naked up top, going after Cassie Ventura, trying to prevent her from getting on the elevator. He grabbed her, he shoved her down, he kicked her, etc., etc. He acknowledged, how heinous the video was in his own social media posting in the aftermath of this being publicized. Could you tell us what happened today inside that courtroom as it pertains to evidence that was shown to the jury and any testimony that was given?
Yeah, that evidence, that video right there, that is the most powerful piece of evidence the prosecution has. And they put it right up front. First witness in the trial they called, they put that on full display. You talk about the extended view of this. What they're trying to show is the defense will try to say, hey, this was an argument. This was an argument between a couple that went awry. Yes, there was domestic violence here, but this isn't any evidence of racketeering or conspiracy. So the prosecution here is trying to show an expanded view. What that does is it kind of undercuts any defense argument that says you're not showing the whole context of what happened. You're not showing what really happened, and there was so much more that went on that tells a story of more of a couple that got into an argument rather than something that builds more into a criminal racketeering conspiracy or something that is a broader issue that comes from it. So that's what they're showing there. Stephen A., the big part of today, though, was opening statements. The prosecution gets up first and lays out their case. And their case is essentially this. Sean Combs, big music mogul, committed these crimes, had these freak-offs, had coerced women into forced sex, all as a part of a criminal enterprise, and others were involved to facilitate that enterprise. But the defense part of this, they come second, and how they contrasted it, I think, is very interesting. They didn't try to say Sean Combs did none of this. They said, look, he's a bad guy. He's a jerk. He has anger issues. He took drugs. And they even took the step of saying that he had some domestic violence in his past. That is important. Because in a way, you put to the jury, hey, if he had these things, doesn't that build into what the prosecution is saying? What the defense is going to try to do here is say, just because he is a bad person doesn't mean he is a person who did illegal things. We do not convict people for being bad people. We convict people for doing illegal activities. So was what we're seeing here in this case, jury, is what the defense is trying to say. Was what we're seeing here evidence of a racketeering enterprise, conspiracy, things like that? Or was this a person with anger issues that you or I might have, sexual proclivities that we may not understand or agree with, but are these things that should lead to a conviction in this case? And I think that's a risky thing to do in some ways, but it's what they have to do because they've got a very imperfect client.
Let's stick to that word risky that you just threw out there. I would imagine you've surmised and deduced that this is risky because of the times that we're living in. This is not the 90s. This is not the 80s. This is not even the early 2000s. This is a time where domestic violence has really, really come to the forefront of the mind's eye of American citizens and beyond because of the heinous behavior of a lot of people, most of them being men, against women. The Me Too movement, the aftermath of all of that and what have you. You're looking at those kind of things, and I find myself saying, why in God's name would a defense team believe that that's a strategy to employ in light of how sensitive we are to those things in these times compared to how we were in years past? Is that why you use the word risky?
It is because we are in a time where we are believing people who are accusing big titans of industry like Sean Combs. So in the past, a lot of times you could undercut that in so many ways as a defense team. You could try to dismiss a victim. You could try to attack people who are accusing people of other.
Okay. Change the device.
She said the longest was 4 days. Significant periods of time. Wow. We'll break here. So there's the break. Okay. So now they're on break at this moment. I want to keep going. I'm going to keep going. LA with Diddy. It's my turn. He's going to release her tapes. I think. And I'll show you why I think that. That's what I was able to piece together by reading this so far. What I think this text, and again, this is all just kind of piecing things together from reading tweets. We will be going through the other sources. I do want to get a little bit more caught up to where we are in real time right now. So we're still like 2 hours behind, but it's going to catch up fast, I promise. What I think this last little thing they're arguing about is these text messages that appear, I think, to show Cassie and Diddy talking.
Hold on.
Sloppy toppy. He would tell us how to rub baby oil on each other in the courtroom. The biggest thing is, y'all, Diddy tried to ban Cassie's husband from the courtroom. I repeat, he tried to get Cassie's husband banned from the courtroom while she was testifying. Now listen, they discussed so much. I had the jury makeup. I'm live in trial, but I'm telling you guys the stuff that CNN, TMZ, and all these people can't tell you. Probably because I got out the courtroom first. So what actually happened? Y'all, it was actually really incredible. It's raining too, so I have my umbrella. It's actually really incredible, okay? So they ended with Philip. He was Cassie's friend, that slash freak-off person, and he ended his testimony. Now, it was really, really good because they had Xavier actually cross-examine him. That's the other, there's only 2 black lawyers on Diddy's team. This was a man. He was actually really, really good. He knows procedure, and he's really, really good with objections, okay? So he came in and he like literally was going in on Philip, saying, didn't you say you were jealous? Didn't you say you were in love with Cassie? Didn't you say Diddy never directed y'all? And he was like, the guy was like, incorrect. And he was like, let me direct your attention. And he brought up an interview he had did with the federal prosecutors in December 2023 and also May of 2024 and October 2024.
She was in the courtroom, y'all.
I said, oh my God, did they just get this man on perjury? But get this, Philip, that's the witness, baby, he had was large. And, I want to see the fit check. I'm still in my Hillary big stuff, but you know, it's raining in New York. So anyway, Philip, I'm going to get to how Diddy tried to get Cassie's husband banned. It was such a tense standoff, okay? So Philip was like, I never said that. I don't remember saying that. And he was like, oh, you didn't? Let me refresh your memory. And he showed him like his old, I guess, statements he had made to the feds. So it looked like, oh my God. And I kept wondering, why isn't the prosecution going in being like, Your Honor, we object. Your Honor, we object. This didn't happen. But anyway, prosecution just let that slide. So after Xavier was done hammering Philip on the witness stand, they said, Your Honor, can we redirect? And he said, go ahead. They started redirecting and they were like, did you read these statements that you gave the feds? And he was like, no, I didn't. They said, did anybody give it to you to review? He said, no, I didn't. Why is that important? Because whenever somebody gives you, you make statements and they're going to use it in court, they should always let you review the statements, because you can say like, yo, I wasn't really that hungry, and then they write down, oh, he had already eaten. You need to review the statement so you can be like, no, I didn't eat, but I also wasn't hungry. It needs to be exact. He said he never. How was that? Oh. I mean, I take you all the time. This is Roger. Oh, hi, how are you? How are you? Good to see you too. Sorry, I'm on live, Roger, but it was good to see you. then, right. So anyway, we were like, okay, so sorry guys. So anyway, the prosecution got back up and they're like, did you read it? And he was like, no, I did not, ma'am. And he was like, did he direct you? Absolutely. How did he direct you? He would tell Cassie, give me sloppy toppy. He would tell us how to rub baby oil on each other. It was really, really embarrassing for Diddy's team because, again, Philip, just like the head of security, super, super strong witness. Super, super strong witness. Okay, I'm going to go in more detail on live later on tonight, but I want to get to the Diddy stuff before I have to go back in. Okay, so what else happened, okay? Diddy being, something wrong with that man, right? He literally stood up in court, right? He stood up in court. Hey, Allie, welcome to the Telltales family. Thank you for coming. Remember, I'll take questions in a second. I've had time. I'm just trying to get this out before I have to go back into court, okay? We are live from the courthouse. I kind of wanted this, but it's raining, so whatever. Hi, sir. All right. So, we were like, listen. Deborah said, girl, we know you have a 5-second attention span. They cannot interrupt you. You're right. I was about to ask, like, what are they serving in the cafeteria? What's going on? Okay, so where were we? Oh, yeah, that's right, talking trash. So anyway, let me get my notebook out because I took notes on this. Actually, I don't need my notebook. I'm going to give y'all my memory. I'll go into notes later on. So all of a sudden, they said, okay, so Cassie's the next person to take the stand. Now, we heard this because the attorneys had a sidebar, right? I could hear them talking. Cassie was about to take the stand. And at the last minute, Diddy's trifling team was like, honestly, Your Honor, Timmy Garrigo stood up. Your Honor, honestly, I really don't know. No, they said, we want to invoke, it was rule, I don't know, let's just say it's rule 16. I forget the name of the rule. But they were like, yo, we want to invoke the rule. And when I heard that, I was like, yo, that's the rule about, like, whenever there is testimony, you can actually exclude people from court from watching it. And they were like, he was like, what's the basis? They literally said that Alex Fine, they have a bunch of text messages that Alex Fine had sent Diddy back in 2018, basically saying, you MFer, I'm going to F you up if I ever catch you on the street. That's your ASS. He literally was cursing Diddy out. Hey, what's up, Slowrilla? Oh, thank you. You said, love the commentary and personality. Thank you, Slowrilla. Anyway, they said they had text messages from Alex back in 2018 talking about something, oh, I'm going to F you up. I'm going to do this. I better never catch you outside. How about that? And I said, I mean, that's fair enough. He did rescue his wife from being sex trafficked and helped her get sober, held her down. And I'm sure she'd been crying in his man's arms every night about the way Diddy actually treated her, right? So anyway, they said they had messages from Alex back in 2018 saying, MFer, I will break your face open. I will murk you. Like, Alex was on a roll. He was in the trial also. And when Cassie was testifying, we'll get to that, okay? So he was like saying that. And they were like, because of that, he threatened the client's life. And we don't think that he should be in the courtroom. And then they had the nerve to say, they were talking to the judge, right? And this is why y'all gotta tune in live while I'm in the courtroom, because half of the court reporters had already left. I was just being nosy, listening to the sidebar, okay? So they were like, and Diddy just doesn't feel comfortable with Alex in there because he's previously threatened his life. And I said, no, he didn't. Then they went on to say, besides, she already has a support system. She has her family and her brother's here, and that's fine to be. He's fine to be here. But Alex, no, we're gonna have to ask him to leave. And I said, listen, one thing that's being established in this trial is Diddy is diabolical. Diddy is maniacal and his need for control. So, for instance, when Philip, that's who testimony in today, Cassie's, but they were friends too. They had a relationship. When I say relationship, maybe not, they not romantic, but he definitely cared about her, right? He got up to leave, and this boy is like swole, like he looked like The Rock walking by. Again, dark skin. They said Diddy liked to see those white fingernails wrapped around that BBC, right? So anyway, when he did that, and he got off the witness stand and was walking out, Diddy for no reason stood up and just looked at him as he went out. Boy, you are in federal detention. What are you running? Who are you running? I don't know what lullabies those roaches and rats are whispering in your ear, but you need to stop. It was actually really, really ridiculous. So anyway, I gotta go in a second, but let me finish the story. So anyway, the prosecution jumped up and was like, no. First of all, when we talk to her, we're talking about things prior to 2018 to which Alex wasn't a part of. So how can you invoke this rule? On top of that, basically, I'm paraphrasing. Who are you to tell her who her support system can be? And it's sick to me that Diddy's such a control freak that he wanted to try to get Alex out of there. So when Cassie waddled in, she looked absolutely gorgeous. She was wearing a long, a maxi turtleneck dress. She's the prettiest pregnant woman. I mean, all pregnant women are beautiful. I love seeing pregnant women, but she looks really, really gorgeous, right? Also, don't listen to anybody talking about Diddy looks gone. Diddy looks better now than he ever did with Young Miami. He looks like he's been getting sleep because when he was in Young Miami, he just looked like he was on no-dose and that Tucci had him up doing the Harlem Shake at like 8 in the morning. And he hadn't been to bed since Hannah had puppies 3 days ago. Anyway, the prosecution was like, no, like, why can't her husband be here? Like, are you serious? And they're like, my client. Anyway, get this. The judge was like, well, because the defendant can actually exclude people from court. And it's crazy to me that Diddy literally tried to exclude Alex from court.
We still think he has
so all that happened, right? And
authority.
So all that happened. And then
I will use that against them.
So anyway, the judge was like, well, it's their call. So then Mark Agnifilio, he saw me today and went, he gave me like a little screw face, a professional screw face, but I guess he heard the fact that I said his new haircut makes him look like Chicken Little, right? So anyway, Mark Agnifilio, Yana, they all like convened.
I think that is absolutely.
And then they were like, you know what? And I said, it's all about power and control.
How dare you?
They were like, you know what? He can stay for now, but when it comes to anything about 2018, then he's gonna have to leave. And Diddy sat there just looking smug. And I said, this man just won't leave.
Why?
Alone. Anyway, Alex was there while Cassie was testifying, and he was turning
right
red with like rage, emotion.
Diddy's kids are there.
Rage, emotion. He looked, but I can understand, right? The woman you love, the mother of your children, while she is carrying your child, is recounting how this monster literally actually did you in. All right, Cassie's brother was there. Cassie's brother, handsome, just like Cassie's beautiful. So the weirdest thing is?
That is crazy to me.
Anything the Combs do is all fanfare. Remember yesterday it was like, oh my God, Diddy's daughters left the trial 2 times. Left the trial 2 times while the sex worker was testifying. And I said, okay, maybe. But then you actually got Cassie up there, and they're showing the video, and she's testifying to the way, and they was all sitting there. One of the twins was trying to look over so they could all look Cassie in her face. They were all sitting there looking Cassie in her face. And I'm like, so you got to leave about the sex workers, but hearing your dad drop kick someone and seeing the person pregnant, you're fine with that? And it just made me look at that family and be like, yo, what do you guys really value?
Entitled.
I will also say this. When I was sitting there and Cassie was, and people were talking, and even this Mex worker, when he was talking about the violence he saw and the way it shattered him, I was like, yo, hold on, y'all. I was like, no, I thought somebody sent me a super chat, but I see y'all don't care about me. Anyway, let's move on, right? But, so I was sitting there and I was like, yo, I wonder what it's like to be ex, because while it was happening, they were talking about the violence. Misa was sitting there stone face. Sarah Chapman was sitting there stone face. Dana Tran was sitting there stone face. The kids were like trying to look Cassie in her face. I guess, I don't know why would you want that, but they weren't leaving. That's how you know them leaving yesterday, I think, was all cap, because you were here for this, right? And your delicate ears could hear this. But it made me wonder, like, what do those women feel? Because if somebody was describing my dad or my brother doing that, I would have been, y'all already know I've been dramatic. Like, oh, Susan Connor, thank you so much for the super chat. And Glennis Bolton, thank you so much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. Shout out to Glennis Bolton and Susan Connor. Appreciate y'all. And a lot of Mouth TV, thank you so much. I love you too, mama. Thank you. But it really got me thinking, like, Raven's right. Thank you so much. You said the whole family sociopaths. Thank you, sociopaths. Listen, I don't know if the kids are sociopaths, but I know they were raising, it seems like, to me, in my opinion, a dysfunctional thing. Leslie Murray said, love you. Thanks for the updates. Oh, thank you so much. So I'm just like, yo, because if somebody had my dad up on trial and they were like, yeah, my dad did this, I would have been like, what? I know you lying. You could have saw my face going off every 2 seconds. Nicola, thank you so much for the super chat. Ron Price, thank you for gifting a membership. Joe Davison, thank you for the super chat. Next check, thank you. You said live Diddy coverage. Hit the like. Great job. Thank you. Melanie Walker, you said great work. Thank you. And Michelle M, thank you so much. Also, Ashley B, girl, you welcome. So listen.
Tense, I will say, mainly because a lot of people just
with a lot of financial. Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much for being our eyes and our ears about what's happening in that courtroom. No cameras, no.
as well as even her husband.
For when Cassandra Ventura was testifying. Elizabeth, it's great to see you. I know you have to jump back into court quite quickly. So let's first start off with Ventura. She takes the stand. How did she appear? What are some of the highlights of her testimony? And most importantly, how is the jury responding to her testimony?
Yeah, well, Jesse, when she had first kind of entered the courtroom, can't necessarily describe it as a tense moment necessarily, but I can only imagine what was kind of going through everybody's minds. You have Diddy's children on one side, his family on one side. You have Diddy, who was looking at Cassie as the moment that she walked inside that courtroom today. She was wearing a long brown dress. She is very, very much so, appears to be in her third trimester of her pregnancy. And so she kind of walked very quietly and very slowly up to the witness stand, took the swore the oath and that type of sort, and then sat down for the prosecution's questioning. And as far as who her support was inside that courtroom, that included her brother, what we presume to be her mother, as well as even her husband, Alex Fine. And he was kind of the topic of some of these arguments outside of the presence of the jury, mainly about just some testimony that they're expected to happen, especially later on today or even possibly tomorrow, because she is expected to be on the stand for a while. But as far as when she got onto the stand, she was very soft-spoken when she was answering ASA Emily Johnson's question. We've been following this case from the beginning, from the moment that she had filed that federal lawsuit that was just very shocking, a very bombshell lawsuit that we all know was settled the following day. But as far as just kind of comparing the allegations to her witness testimony, it was kind of a difference in the sense that we had only seen her allegations through words, through paper, through court filings and that sort. But, when she got on the stand, it's now, for jurors in their minds, they're putting a voice and they're putting a person to, a name finally. They're seeing just from her side of the view, just kind of her relationship with Diddy. Much of the testimony was very foundational. When did she meet Diddy? How long before, the two engaged in sexual intercourse? As well as, she was briefly asked about the CNN video, and she did confirm that she was leaving a freak off when the vicious beating kind of happened.
She was leaving a freak off.
Other big highlights, we were shown a lot of photos of her and Sean, as she refers to him in court, as well as her friends. We saw a photo of him being Diddy, Kim Porter, another friend, and Cassie all at the 2006 BET Awards. We saw a photo of Diddy with Cassie, another friend, and another potential witness to this case, all sitting on a couch. We had seen photos of their trip to Miami. We saw photos of them at a strip club together here in New York City in 2007. For Halloween, she had spoken about just, her time working as an artist for Bad Boy, and just that pretty much, some of these allegations she had talked about in her lawsuit, but also that Diddy controlled a lot of aspects of her recording career. She signed a 10-album deal. However, she only put out one album plus a mixtape. A lot of the songs that she had even recorded had just gone either, unreleased, or they were leaked and that type of sort. And so some of those were like kind of the big highlights, I would say. They were kind of touching base on who all else kind of played a role in, as far as, security. She had named people like D-Rock and Bounds and Uncle Paulie and Malik. As far as assistants, we heard one of the big names being Christina Coram, as well as David James, Neil Dominic. And so that was kind of touching base a little bit as far as, how Diddy's staff kind of interacted with her. But for the most part, another eye-opening point was just that, Diddy had security around him 24/7. But she also had said that, sometimes the security's job was...
Everybody that owns a business is balancing their responsibilities to their employees, to their community.
essentially that, if she wasn't answering the phone when Diddy had called, that he would send his security to go and find her. And so, as far as just some of the
trial happening in down.
Happened. As far as just some other big highlights, we were shown a lot of photos of her and
And welcome back to our live cover. And I can see that, and
it was kind of a difference in the sense that we had only seen her later on today or even possibly tomorrow, because she is expected to be on the stand for a while. But as far as when she got onto the stand, she was very soft-spoken when she was answering ASA Emily Johnson's question. She, we've been following this case from the beginning, from the moment that she had filed that federal lawsuit that was just very shocking, a very bombshell lawsuit that we all know was settled the following day. But as far as just kind of comparing the allegations to her witness testimony, it was kind of a difference in the sense that we had only seen her allegations through words, through paper, through court filings and that sort. But, when she got on the stand, it's now, for jurors in their minds, they're putting a voice and they're putting a person to, a name finally. They're seeing just from her side of the view, just kind of her relationship with Diddy. Much of the testimony was very foundational. When did she meet Diddy? How long before, the two engaged in sexual intercourse? As well as, she was briefly asked about the CNN video, and she did confirm that she was leaving a freak off when the vicious beating kind of happened. As far as just some other big highlights, we were shown a lot of photos of her and Sean, as she refers to him in court, as well as her friends. We saw a photo of him being Diddy, Kim Porter, another friend, and Cassie, all at the 2006 BET Awards. We saw a photo of Diddy with Cassie, another friend, and another potential witness to this case, all sitting on a couch. We had seen photos of their trip to Miami. We saw photos of them at a strip club together here in New York City in 2007. For Halloween, she had spoken about just, her time working as an artist for Bad Boy, and just that pretty much, some of these allegations she had talked about in her lawsuit, but also that Diddy controlled a lot of aspects of her recording career. She signed a 10-album deal. However, she only put out one album plus a mixtape. A lot of the songs that she had even recorded had just gone either, unreleased, or they were leaked and that type of sort. And so some of those were like kind of the big highlights, I would say. They were kind of touching base on who all else kind of played a role in, as far as, security. She had named people like D-Rock and Bounds and Uncle Paulie and Malik. As far as assistants, we heard one of the big names being Christina Coram, as well as David James, Neil Dominic. And so that was kind of touching base a little bit as far as, how Diddy's staff kind of interacted with her. But for the most part, another eye-opening point was just that, Diddy had security around him 24/7. But she also had said that, sometimes the security's job was to kind of check on her and make sure that she was doing what she was supposed to, essentially. That, if she wasn't answering the phone when Diddy had called, that he would send his security to go and find her. And so, as far as just some of the testimony, I'm sure we'll get into more details as far as kind of, the freak-offs and that type of those types of allegations. But, it really did start off pretty foundational. And I was pretty surprised at, how composed she was keeping it all while on the stand. Again, she was very soft-spoken, but she answered the questions directly. If there was something that she was confused about or wanted Emily Johnson to rephrase or just to ask again, she was open about that. There were very brief moments of laughter, but that was just because, it was nothing that had to do with any of those graphic allegations or anything like that. But it was just, pretty much, she was asked, like, why didn't you release more albums? And she's like, is that a question for me? And then there was a little chuckle. But for the most part, it was very much a serious tone. A lot of eyes were on Cassie. A lot of eyes were also on Diddy's children when they were talking, for example, about Kim Porter and just how that relationship had ended while Cassie was starting her relationship with Diddy. And so we got to kind of see finally for a while now, because it's almost been 2 years since she had filed her lawsuit at this point, that we kind of got to see her explain her own view from her own mouth, as opposed to us seeing these allegations in like lawsuits and that type of sort.
So I have two questions for you. One, how is the jury responding to her testimony and more of the graphic points of her testimony? But also, What was Diddy doing? What was Sean Combs doing? Was he looking at her? Was she looking at him at any points? So again, what was the jury's reaction and what was the reaction between Diddy and Cassie?
Well, let me tell you, it was a very packed courtroom, so it was really hard to kind of see all the jurors and their faces. But from the little view that I got of just seeing these jurors, they were listening intently like they have been even since yesterday, taking notes, kind of watching back and forth, both, the prosecution asked their questions and then going over and kind of looking at the witness, that being Cassie, while on the stand. Now, as far as Diddy goes, he was watching very intently. Like, let me tell you something. He is very much so participating in his defense. He is jotting notes down. He's passing these notes because we do know when the cross-examination comes down, it's going to be Ana Maria Esteval who's going to be doing that line of questioning once the defense does get to the cross of Cassie's testimony. But as far as Diddy goes, he definitely kept his eyes on Cassie for the most duration while she was on the stand, which I can only imagine was felt intimidating on her end. Possibly, I'm obviously not in her mind, so I don't know that 100% or anything like that. But as far as Cassie looking back in Diddy's direction, even when she had gotten off the stand, she didn't look at him once. She just walked immediately outside through the gallery, didn't look at him, didn't look at his children. There was no type of soft smile, none of that. I think, even she might not have noticed her husband was right there in the courtroom too, but she kept laser focused, got out of the door, and then that's when everybody else kind of left the courtroom for lunch break.
Pretty surreal, to say the least. Let me ask you this. At the beginning of the day, we kind of got a sense of what's going to happen next. Everybody's been talking about the freak-off tapes or these sex tapes and how they're going to be visible in the courtroom, whether or not the gallery is going to see these tapes. I imagine when she's going to have to talk about these tapes, she's going to have to view these tapes. What was the discussion earlier this morning regarding the tapes, how a witness will be questioned about the tapes, and whether or not anybody in the gallery will ultimately see them?
Yeah, so there was a lot of concerns about these exhibits, mainly more so, I guess, from us on the press ends portion, just seeing that these photos were sexually explicit and very graphic in nature. The government planned to show some of these images because they, according to the government, were 6 still images. They were nude images of victims that were sexually explicit, but the government kind of came up with a solution that, they would provide headphones to the jurors so that way, we wouldn't hear any type of audio of, these exhibits that were going to be portrayed. The government wanted to keep this material out of public record. The defense, meanwhile, says it's pretty much adult pornography. And so that's when we kind of started connecting the dots that these were, videos and images of, these freak-offs that the government is kind of talking about that's central to their case. The defense says it's a privacy issue, and they question what us in the press would pretty much do with these types of images. And you know what? We have a right to kind of talk about them, especially not in a salacious manner or anything like that. I don't think that was any of our intents on, being in the courtroom while these images were played or anything like that. But apparently it seems like, a point for the defense that, they were just wondering what the press would do about it, especially with so many eyes on this case. And so, they wanted to address this issue. The media did have a response through a lawyer. Not 100% sure what outlet they were with, but the media's response was pretty much that the press needs to see these. The testimony isn't necessarily suitable for these images because, the big question is, was this consensual or was this coerced? And so the media lawyer, offered maybe just the pool of reporters to see these types of images, so that way there would at least be some media in the room, so that way we could report about this. And so from the media's response, they completely objected to total sealment of these images and says that it's a First Amendment issue. And so this is going to be taken up probably at a later time, possibly when we all come back from the lunch break, just to kind of get a better picture of it. But it seems like, from both parties that they're kind of fearful about these images getting out. But on our side, we have a right to report on what's going on. I mean, look at just the media campouts just behind me. A lot of people have interest in this, not just for salacious headlines or anything like that, but because this is a very high profile and criminal case. And of course, we will respectfully report on it if we are able to see these images.
Real quick, Elizabeth, I want to get you back in that courtroom. 30 seconds. If you could just explain what the scene is like today.
Well, the scene is very much so a lot of high energy, a lot of anxious energy, and maybe I'm just saying my own personal feelings because it was pretty tense this morning as a lot of people were just trying to battle to get inside that courtroom because everyone wanted to be in there when Cassie took the stand. Everyone wanted to see her to raise her right hand, swear an oath, and to get inside that courtroom. So there was a little tense moments from people either cutting in lines or people trying to get ahead as well. But as far as, from the family's perspective, I had mentioned yesterday that the daughters had walked out during Daniel Phillips' testimony. That wasn't the case today. Everyone stayed in court, stayed in place. They were listening to all the testimony that was going on today. And so for the most part, it just seems like, okay, this is day 2. A lot of people are just wanting to know more information. What are we going to be getting out of this case? Is this a criminal case, or is this, very much so possibly a domestic violence case, as the defense is trying to kind of paint it out. But as far as the mood inside that courtroom, it's very tense, I will say, mainly because a lot of people just have their eyes on this very important testimony from one of the biggest witnesses and one of the biggest players inside this case today.
Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much for being our eyes and our ears about what's happening in that courtroom. No cameras, no audio equipment, but we got Elizabeth, and she does a fantastic job. Thank you so much. And I know you have to head back into court. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to continue to take your questions.
The defense is looking for the truth.
Attorney Rich Schoenstein. So, Rich, you heard that description, okay? You heard the description about her testimony. We've been talking about it.
Please sit.
The jurors' reaction. Hearing, by the way,
how are we doing today?
Responded, or the lack of response.
So, are we going to act like?
Looking over his way,
Are we going to act like there's really a big difference in between what's going on with Diddy and Cassie, and they, male escorts that you have to pay somebody to screw your girl? Wait, y'all, like, for real. In all fairness, AunTeaFee had to come from behind the scenes on this one. Why are you paying somebody to screw your girlfriend? He talking about he had erectile issues after watching you beat the crap out of her. What's wrong with your Peter? It ain't pecking. Your Peter not doing the job. You can only get off if you see somebody else getting it in. What's really going on? You don't get excited when you go in her like you do, allegedly, they say, with Jay-Z. They also say that you got a thing for, I'm going to leave the fox alone. I like the fox. But you poisoned him too, they say. So, listen, T-Sippers, are we going to act like this don't have a ring of similarity with that? Now, not in wealth. I'm just saying in sickness in your mind, your sexual overdrive. To that nature boy, that cult, this don't sound cultish to you? I'm asked. This sound like a cult. What you sending people to, if they don't want to answer your call, they got to answer your call. They can't move on past you. You making people pee in folk mouth. Where they do that at? And then when I say I don't know, that's enough, then you come drag me down the hall. And who in the do you think you are that's going to tell somebody they husband can't be in the courtroom, but your whole lineup, your kids, your mama, your baby mamas, some of your sex toy men, all of them can be in there, but her husband can't. And how dare the judge, the defense attorneys, everybody named Mama for even bringing that before the court. Why? I'm more concerned about Cassie not having any form of protection in the courtroom more than I'm concerned about how he feels. If I was Cassie, I'd be saying, my husband has to stay. If you want me on this witness stand, Your Honor, my husband has to stay. Just in case he think he gonna jump across the table, you know, and try to do something to me for testifying and telling my truth. And that I would just grab my control back from him. Nigga, you don't run a motherfucking thing. See, that's what AunTeaFee would be saying. If my husband can't be in here, neither can I. Take his ass back to his cell if he don't. Hey, B-Money. Hey, take his ass back to his cell if he don't want my husband up in here. If he can't handle the truth, if he don't want to hear the vicious things that he did. Oh, now cause you reading the Bible. You don't want to see yourself. The devil is a lie. That Bible ain't gonna change the reality. My reality, nor yours. What you need to do is repent for the things that you did. It don't have nothing to do with my husband being up in here to support me. Now, devil, see, this is what AunTeaFee will be saying. Devil, get thee behind me and take your ass back to your cell if you don't want to hear my truth. He better be glad I ain't her friend. I'll be saying, can I speak for her? If he can't be here, can't none of them be standing up trying to look at me. If this is how we gonna do it, that's how we gonna do it. My husband against all of them. He got support, and I need to have some too. Or what are we doing here? Are y'all on his payroll? See, this is what AunTeaFee will be saying. Did he pay you off? Do we need to move the venue? This is what AunTeaFee will be saying. Cassie asked, what? Hold on. Cassie asked, what? Hold on. Yeah, something ain't right with that. Something ain't right with that. Y'all, hold on. What'd I just say? Oh, they talking about her being asked to be pissed on. See, what people are missing. Get them like they ass up out. What? This, baby, I left the court. The minute that devil had that man who I really didn't know piss in my mouth. I knew then I had lost my mind for even entertaining this bullshit. I felt like I had sold my soul to the devil. And I'm about to be set free because I'm about to walk my happy-go-lucky ass up out that motherfucking door. Nigga, nigga, you done lost your mind. Piss in my mouth. Baby. Baby. In my mouth. You done lost your mind. I lose it, hell, if some pop up from out the toilet and hit my ass. I need a bath. What? And you want to piss in my mouth? Child, me and you are through. Lord don't live here no more. Look at here, ladies. Let me tell y'all something. It's better that y'all be single and by yourself and have all the peace in the world than to have somebody to say you got a man that's going to make you jump through the devil's hoops like that. That's a problem. That's a problem. I don't know no man who halfway cared about me. Do you hear me? Halfway cared about me. That wanted me to be intimate with another man. I don't know not now one. Not that cared about me. Do you understand? I just, And the minute, to me, this is just to me, if I think I like him and I'm thinking he like me and he asked me to be with another man, that's saying, oh, he don't like me. Ain't enough material things in the world. Whatever God has for you, it will be for you. And if it's meant for you to have them, you will get them. We have to change the way we think. That's why the Bible says, because of the renewing of the mind. See, this is cult to me. This is that nature boy, just on the upscale. Just on the upscale. Everything is similar. Narcissistic minds think alike. The control factor is alike. Does that make sense to anybody out there? It's alike. The lies, the denial, it's alike. And if her, the prosecuting attorney, don't bring that around of him trying to force, control the dynamics of this trial to fit his narrative, he loses his mind every time he don't have his way. And the mere fact that he tried to force her husband to not be able to be in the courtroom illustrates the control he would have on her. If the judge in the courts went along with it and changed their plans and changed the structure, then what did you expect for her to do when she had been wrapped up in that for 10 years? See, they need somebody on the team like AunTeaFee. Because see, I'll put it back on there. So the same way that y'all changed up and went with whatever it is that he wanted was the same curse I was up under. This is crazy.
They're looking for facts, not cool points. So they got.
I'm trying to find.
She filed a lawsuit, got her money.
Looks great.
I'm trying to find somebody who there that's current.
And she filed a lawsuit, got her money, and then they came right after that.
Yeah, once he did that, yeah, it's over.
We'll take.
Let's listen to Willie D earlier today. When I went there a while ago, he just
What's up, family?
had
Now we're getting down to the nitty gritty.
let's get down to the nitty
According to her lawyer, Douglas Wigdor, Cassie will take the stand today.
She on the stand now.
We may.
Ooh, I like that right
Cassie, the woman who started it all. Yeah. When Cassie filed that lawsuit against Diddy, boom. I mean, it was over, fam. Well, it really was over when he paid her in record time. I think he paid her like within 24 hours, gave her millions. And that opened up the floodgates for all of those other lawsuits against Diddy. It also opened up the Fed's investigation even wider. Allegedly, they were already checking Diddy out. But when Cassie filed that lawsuit, they went in. I do believe that they were already working with Cassie.
Probably.
Yeah. I think they were already working with her. Then she filed a lawsuit, got her money, and then they came right after that and raided the homes in Miami and Los Angeles. Came by sea, air, and land. Yeah. Well, I guess it wasn't sea, but it came by water. Cassie is about to open up the Pandora box. In fact, the Pandora box really is already open with the testimony of that male dancer who said he peed in Cassie's mouth.
In her mouth.
What more can they say to shock us? Cassie got a lot to say. I'm talking about a lot to say.
In her mouth.
And it is going to be revealed in court, allegedly today. She takes the stand. I mean, damn, what can she say after getting peed in the mouth? I'm sure it's going to be high tension.
Oh, man, did she swallow that? Oh.
And point. I guess they still point. You see the person who did all these things to you? Yeah, point him out. Can you point him out just for the record? Ooh-wee, man. Can you imagine being on trial? I mean, for anything. Being on trial. You're sitting there at the defendant desk, at the defense desk, and the person that you spent 10 years of your life with is sitting on a stand, and they're telling the world about how much of a monster you were. They're not telling the world about anything you did good. It's all bad. And they're pointing the finger at you. And they're trying to take you down. They're trying to pretty much end you, send you to prison for the rest of your life. Diddy is a 50-something-year-old man. A life sentence. And the feds is a life sentence. Yeah, man. Yeah. Cassie is about to get on that stand and tell the whole world all of her personal business. Yeah, man. She got to tell it.
You got to tell
Here's
it.
the danger. I mean, she's saying all this stuff to put Diddy away, but here's the danger. Whatever she say about Diddy, she's going to be cross-examined. And she's going to have to answer some questions about the role that she played. I mean, when this is all over, they could very well go after Cassie. Yeah. You might have one of those overzealous prosecutors who say, you know what, man? Hell, I didn't know she was involved in all of that. I didn't know she was that deeply involved. You know what? Let me hit her with some charges. I think that's highly unlikely, but it's possible. Hell, anything is possible. Well, almost anything is possible. She's going to be cross-examined. And although she's pregnant, Cassie is fully pregnant. She looks like she's about to drop. She could drop during the trial, as if this trial needed any more drama. But she could drop during trial, like in the middle of testimony. She's all the way out there. And the defense is going to have to be careful about cross-examining her, questioning her, because if they come off too hard, they're going to come off as bullies. And just in general, people don't like it when you bully women in the first place. They don't like men bullying women or coming off like that bullying women, even though the defense has a right to question her. Because the defense is looking for the truth. They're looking for facts, not cool points. So they gotta question her. What they gotta be careful about doing is coming off like some bullies. Here are these big bad lawyers coming after this little small woman, pregnant woman. That ain't a good look. So they gotta be careful about how they question her, because it could backfire if they come out too strong. But they got to question her. They gotta ask the hard questions. And they are going to absolutely indict her verbally for her role in these freak-offs. Because keep in mind, the guy from yesterday was the sex worker. He said Cassie was in charge. He said Cassie asked him to pee on her. He also said Cassie paid.
Remember, yeah, I got to go back to remember that it was said yesterday that he instructed them on what and how it needed to be done. So if that's the case, then she was following his directive. Yeah, because he had told them what needed to be done and how he wanted it. How to rub the R, rub her down, and do this and all of that type of stuff. Ugh. Wow. Like he was doing a movie.
She paid him.
By way of him. See, he set it up now.
How did she pay him? He said, out of her hand. He said she handed the money to him.
Yeah, he set it up.
And he also said that when Cassie and Diddy was in the room boxing, well, maybe Diddy was boxing and Cassie was doing more crying, Cassie ran out of the room and jumped into his lap, butt naked. This is the prosecution's chance
Girl,
to
what
shine.
was wrong with you?
Cassie is their star witness. She is the most important witness they have. And some might say the most credible one that she had, because she knows Diddy better than almost anybody knows Diddy. Anybody who walks into that courtroom besides his mama. In fact, she might know him even better, because, well, as far as I know, mama wasn't at the freak house, but, you know, she know how he get down behind closed doors, so she may have seen some things that mama ain't really seen. So she's going to get a lot of credit, you know, for her testimony. The thing is, the defense is going to be able to pop back because she ain't totally innocent. She was complicit in a lot of the stuff that they did. Yeah, he may have forced her to do something here and there, but 10 years, he didn't force her for 10 years. I'll never believe that. But what say you, fam? Drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. No more talk.
We have these beautiful golden showers. Where's the hot sauce bar?
Honey, not every place can have a hot sauce.
She fell in love with him, and that really goes to that consent issue, right? How much of this was consensual? How much of it was coerced? You and Rich have been talking about this. So I think what I would want is to see more evidence of the violence.
Because there's enough of that hallway. Because we have a major update in the Sean Combs criminal case. As I speak right now, Cassandra about this testimony, about the case in general, as it progresses. So if you have a question, submit it on YouTube. We will answer it here on air.
I'm trying to get to where it starts. Where did it start?
Now, Cassandra Ventura has taken the stand. Now, unfortunately, in this case, in a federal case, there are no cameras in the courtroom. There is no audio in the courtroom. But we are going to do our best to report to you in real time what is happening, analyzing her testimony in real time. And we're going to also be taking your questions about this testimony, about the case in general, as it progresses. So if you have a question, submit it on YouTube. We will answer it here on air. I'm not going to do it alone. I have with me here in studio Rich Schoenstein, trial attorney. Rich, thanks for jumping here so quickly. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Big day in this trial.
This is a big day because she is victim number one in this case. I think it would be fair to say we probably wouldn't have criminal charges if it wasn't for Cassandra Ventura filing her lawsuit in November of 2023. We all know that the videotape of her reportedly being beaten by Sean Combs in 2016 changed the course of this entire legal saga. It came up a lot yesterday. She came up a lot yesterday. And now her testifying for the prosecution, I think a fair argument is this case either rises or falls with her testimony. So what has she testified to so far? Well, first of all, she's quite pregnant. She's about 8.5 months, 9 months pregnant. She's 38 years old. She explained that she was with Sean Combs for 10 years. We're talking about a 17-year age difference. She admitted that during the course of their relationship, he introduced her to certain sex acts. She asked to describe the relationship she had with him. Quote, there were violent arguments that would usually result in some sort of physical abuse, dragging, different things of that nature. Again, why is this important? He's charged with sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. He's charged with racketeering conspiracy, a criminal enterprise, underlying crimes like sex trafficking, kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction, and also transporting sex workers for purposes of prostitution. She went on to say that he would stomp her in the head if she was down. There was frequent violence. She would have black eyes. She would have bruises. She was asked by the prosecution to describe what a freak off.
I'm gonna switch locations.
Who says he was hired by Cassandra Ventura and Sean Combs to have sex with Cassie in front of Sean Combs. She described how their relationship was quite complex, talking about these freak-offs when she was first introduced to them. She says, I was confused, nervous, but also loved him very much. She explained how Sean Combs ultimately controlled a lot of her life. She talked about blackmail materials, so videos that Combs purportedly shot of her during these sexual encounters. She was concerned that they would be published, they would be released. Quote, he had many resources to do that. She was shown the 2016 video of that hallway attack, as I mentioned. She confirmed it was after a freak-off, which is important, because while the defense would say this is an unfortunate incident of domestic violence, and domestic violence is not sex trafficking, she has confirmed that this was after a freak-off. This was in furtherance of sex trafficking. She says she was afraid that if she said no to him, it would make him angry. So again, we're going to get more of her testimony in real time. So far, Rich, from what I've said, what are you taking away from her testimony?
Well, obviously, this is a horrendous relationship, and she suffered a lot. I think the defense is arguing, in essence, that she was a consensual, willing participant in this relationship. It was a 10-year relationship. It had ups and downs, and the defense is arguing that some of the things...
Thrive Cosmetics just came out with new shades of my favorite product, and I am obsessed.
Was forced to do, she did willingly, and perhaps even enjoyed at the time. So that's what we're getting at. But this is really shocking stuff for a jury to have to hear all of this, and I think see some of it is coming up.
Don't you think that there is a potential problem for the prosecution? Because we heard it, it was funny. We have a question from TDB. Jesse, does the male dancer's testimony about Cassie contradict the prosecution's opening statement? Now, he had testified that he thought he heard Sean Combs slapping her, that there were instances where he saw him dragging her, but at the same time, he was getting paid by her. He was texting her. She was participating in these freak-offs. You wonder, this case is a thin line. Was it coercion or not? Was she a victim or partner in this? Do you think when you hear the testimony of that male dancer and you hear her testimony now, it'll be difficult for the jury to believe that everything was coerced and against her will?
I don't think the jury is going to believe that everything was coerced and against her will at the time, but it doesn't have to. There's a massive power imbalance here. So even if she willingly participated for parts of this relationship, he has all of the power and he's using it. And the one thing you mentioned, I wrote down, blackmail video. That stuff's really important to the case, right? This is carrot and stick territory, but he kept, allegedly, things like these videos to keep people in line. And the allegation here is if she sort of got a little bit antsy about how the relationship was going, he would threaten to release videos that would destroy any chance of her having a career.
The defense would say the only person that was in possession of the videos was Cassandra Ventura. That's a point that they made yesterday.
That's an evidentiary point. I don't know the answer to that.
Let me ask you this. We have a question from Lauren, who, by the way, has this cute little, emoji, smiley face with the hearts. I like it. It's nice. I have a question. Do you think now that the prosecution has played their ace with Cassie, that they have more damning evidence to come?
I would expect so, because when you're prosecuting a case like this, you want to start strong. And I think some of the idea of putting her on in day 2 of this trial is to start strong. They put on a little corroborating testimony first, right, from this dancer, escort, whatever you want to call him. And now they have her, the security guard, and they get to show the video, that horrible video. And now she testifies. But it can't be the prosecution's plan to try this case that now they're just going to wind their way through some other inconsequential witnesses. I mean, they have 2 more victims, as I understand it.
Well, let's talk about this. The practical reality is, A, they need to get her on the stand before she gives birth, okay?
Well, that's true, too. That's true. Good point.
Yeah, because victim 3 is nowhere to be found. So they may have to make sure that victim 1 is still available. But also, I agree that they started very strong with corroborating evidence before they brought her on, because what happened? When she filed her lawsuit in November of 2023, made these wild allegations, I think people said, how do we know this is true or not? As soon as that video was released by CNN, the whole game changed, because people not only believed that particular incident in the complaint, they believed overall all the allegations that she made, and it seems the prosecution is doing just that. Now, it's interesting thinking about this. By the way, I'm going to give more updates about her testimony. So right now, Ventura said, I thought we were monogamous. The prosecutor asked, was it made public? No, I was his artist, also his family, his children, meaning their relationship wasn't public yet. Who was linked to him publicly? Kim Porter. Miss Ventura responds, how did Sean treat you at this time? We had fun. So a lot of this is talking about the beginnings of their relationship, and she has to concede some points, right? She can't just say, it was a disaster at the very beginning. I hated him from the very beginning. I was under a distress from the very beginning. There has to be an aspect to it where she explains, no, I started this relationship. I was young. I was excited, but then it devolved, right? In order to be credible on the stand about the story, I think.
I agree with that. And also to acknowledge that there were benefits to her of being in this relationship. It would, at least in theory, help her career. It would get her to meet people that she otherwise wouldn't have been able to meet. So all of that is true. There's nothing wrong with her conceding that, because none of that justifies being dragged down a hallway and beaten.
Exactly. And by the way, we jumped on here on air immediately as soon as we found out that Cassandra Ventura was officially taking the stand. And one thing that makes Law and Crime a little bit different than other outlets like that is our viewers. Not only do we value our viewers, but we are making content right now purely for our viewers on YouTube. We want to give you the most up-to-date information about this case in real time. And again, we are the only channel, the only news organization that is producing content for you specifically. We value that. YouTube is where the most hard cutting edge news is coming from, and we want to get it to you out to you as quickly as possible. So thank you so much to our supporters. We are going to continue to take your questions for for a while now, because she's going to be on the stand. So let's keep it going. Again, thank you to our YouTube audience. Jane, are there any more witnesses to Cassie getting attacked by Diddy apart from the bodyguard? I mean, I don't know. I would imagine so.
Yeah, I don't know either. There's a videotape, so that's kind of a witness. But yes, I would imagine there are other witnesses who are going to talk about the relationship and probably talk about some of the physical stuff.
Well, they mentioned chiefs of staff. They mentioned a chef. They mentioned one of the questions from the defense yesterday was, how is this a conspiracy, right? For a conspiracy, you need two or more people to agree. Who are the people that coordinated and facilitated this racketeering and sex trafficking operation are not criminally charged?
So I see two major hurdles for the prosecution in this case. One is what we've been talking about. They have to get past the idea that this is consensual behavior by other people who are behaving in a questionable fashion. They have to get past that. The second bigger hurdle to me is turning an abuse case into a racketeering case, right? Because yes, they have to prove RICO is very challenging. You have to prove a RICO enterprise. You have to prove a pattern of racketeering activity. You have to prove multiple predicate acts that are violations of separate federal laws. It is hard to sustain a RICO case. We've seen some other cases where people have tried. That's going to be a major hurdle here. The fact that he had this 10-year relationship, and even if it's arguably true, he took advantage of her, he treated her horribly, he beat her, he did all these terrible things to her. That's not racketeering.
I say that the prosecution spent so much time yesterday in their opening statement trying to explain to this jury why it's a crime. Because it's not a garden variety trafficking or racketeering case. And I think the more they have to explain it, that's a problem for them. I think it's a weakness in their case, personally. Now we have an update from court. Prosecutor asked Cassandra Ventura, what was his lifestyle like? Ventura responds, he had all these assistants. You get things done. He traveled quite a bit. And then apparently she's shown a photo, and she says, this is Sean and I at a strip club in New York, like 2007, 2008, Halloween. How did Sean Combs' moods vary? Day to day. Now look, he is charged with specific crimes that John Smith on the street can't meet. There is an argument here, very powerful, had all these businesses, different resources, different employees. He would be in the position to be able to carry out a sex trafficking or racketeering operation. That's what makes him unique, though.
Sure, but is that what he's doing? Is he running an entertainment and fashion industry, or is he running essentially a criminal organization?
By the way, we have a poll up right now. You can participate in it.
I think a criminal
Do you think Cassie
organization.
Ventura was a victim or partner in this? Ready for this? 82%. Well, this doesn't make sense. 82% say yes. I don't know if that's yes to. I think we need clarification.
Yes,
82% say victim or partner. We'll get a clarification on that.
By the way,
right now.
that's my answer to that question.
The first one is
Okay,
victim.
82% say victim. 82% say victim. Maybe based on we're reporting on the testimony right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think she is a victim if the allegations are true, but also she is involved in some of the criminal act. I mean, she's getting those prostitutes, right? She's making payments to them, allegedly. She's having them come. So she's involved in some of the alleged criminal activity.
But that happens even with people who have been molested.
Other people in his orbit might be some combination of victim and co-conspirator.
Stockholm syndrome.
But you know what? That video changes everything, because the argument would be, what do you think happens if she says no?
Yeah.
What do you think happens
Absolutely.
if she says, I'm not in the mood for a freak off tonight. I'm not going to pay the dancer. That's what's going to happen. That video is arguably the most important piece of evidence because it sets the stage when we're talking about coercion or force. Question from Angelina. How old was Cassie when they first started dating? I think she was 19 years old. So you're
Yeah,
talking about a
come on now.
17-year age difference. That's important. I think that's an important factor if you're talking about power and control, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that he's
Manipulation.
older and obviously
He
has
groomed
much more
her.
power anyway.
He groomed her because he's a
Sherry Williams
predator.
asks, what kind of time is Diddy facing if he's found guilty? Do you want me to, I have it listed unless you want me to answer that one.
I would say life in prison, but you
Well,
can tell me specifically.
So this is exactly what he'd be facing. So if he's convicted of one count of racketeering conspiracy, I pulled this up because I figured people might be curious. If he is convicted of racketeering conspiracy, the top charge, that is a maximum sentence of life in prison. You know what the minimum is for that? Well, okay, so that's life in prison. Maximum sentence for sex trafficking, life in prison. You know what the minimum is for sex trafficking? 15 years in prison. And then the transportation for purposes of prostitution carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Rich, I have to tell you, I don't know about racketeering. I don't know about sex trafficking if he's going to be convicted of those. I am fairly confident he's going to be convicted of allegedly transporting sex workers with the intent that they engage in prostitution. Their argument, as far as I understood yesterday, if he is convicted of that, he might not get 10 years. He might get, a shorter amount and time served, his time already in the MDC. I don't know, but it wouldn't be life in prison. Wouldn't it be 15 years?
Yeah, he might not get full 10 years. He might.
Knowing that when one journey ends, a new one begins.
His enterprise. So I think that would actually be a defense victory, all things considered.
So we have an update from court. I think she's describing what the alleged abuse was like. She talks about anger, zoning out. She was asked, how did this impact you? She says, greatly. The next thing I knew, I was getting hit in the face. She also apparently talks about psychological abuse. He'd tell me to watch my mouth, change my face. So, I do wonder, that has a strong impact because there's another case that we're covering right now. It's the Alexander brothers. And they're being charged with sex trafficking. And the argument you hear from defense attorneys is this is a very novel way to charge individuals. That if you're talking about romantic relationships or girlfriends or flings, and you're taking them on trips, you're paying for their meals, you're buying them gifts, maybe you're promising things, romantic gestures, are we now in a position where romantic relationships are just on the line of sex trafficking, or where does it differ?
Well, here he is allegedly bringing in
And paying them.
prostitutes to participate in these freak-offs and paying them for sexual services. So that to me would clearly be sex trafficking if it's true. It's not just about the girlfriend. It's not just about the relationship. It's about these sex workers that he is moving about.
We have a question from Trune. What about male victims? Seems like this case is solely based on women victims.
This case appears to be based on women victims. I mean, I've heard speculation too about male victims. I don't know where that stands.
Well, there's lawsuits. There's a lot of lawsuits that have been filed by male victims. And I wonder, do you think that was intentional for the prosecution to not include those in this case? I mean, why weren't minor victims? Let me say this. He has been accused in lawsuits of abusing minors, okay? Allegations, accusations, okay, never been criminally charged. If you're the prosecution and you want a slam dunk case against Sean Combs and you want justice for all of the alleged federal crimes he committed, the problem with the minor victim for a defendant like that is there's no consent defense anymore. Do you think it's like we want to be as specific as possible with these charges? We don't want to make this case overly broad. The bigger it becomes, the more risk it'll fall down. Thoughts?
I don't buy that. I think the prosecution wanted as many victims as it could get. But I think the prosecution had to scrutinize every potential victim to, first of all, are they going to show up, right? We have an issue with one of the three, whether or not they're going to show up. So they had to scrutinize that. And also how are their claims? How are they going to be on cross-examination? How is it going to play? They wanted multiple victims. The only way this case is what it is because there are multiple victims. This is not a RICO case if it's just what he did to one person, no matter how horrible it was. That doesn't get you to racketeering. So he needs them. They need the multiple victims.
And that brings up a good question I have. If you read the indictment, let me just phrase that. There's been many superseding indictments.
Yeah.
It says alleged victims, right? Alleged victim 1, 2, 3, 4. But then it says victims including, like victims, many victims including alleged victim 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that mean we're going to hear other people who are
Let's
not
pause here for a
enumerated?
minute. Let's go now. Let's go here.
Emergencies can strike at any time. That's why it's crucial to be prepared. Create a support system of
Cassie Ventura is expected to take the stand today. So far, the jury has heard graphic and very disturbing details from a man who says he was paid to have sex with Cassie Ventura. He also testified that he witnessed the music mogul assault her on 2 separate occasions. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges.
So let's go live now to CNN anchor and chief legal analyst Laura Coates right outside that courthouse in New York. Laura, so tell us more about when Ventura will take the stand. That is really such a big focus for today.
She will take the stand any moment now. She is the very next witness up. We are waiting to hear what might be explosive testimony from Cassie Ventura, the linchpin of the prosecution's case. Remember, we were told by the defense yesterday, this is the first time in 6.5 years since the death of the mother of 4 of Sean Diddy Combs' children, Kim Porter, tragically.
That nigga really look like Dracula right now. Look at him. That nigga looks spooky. I gotta hit the spooky. Spooky!
That's how it's going on the stand.
And you know,
she real pretty.
Allegedly, they be, you know, they be drinking that baby blood, so you know what he's thinking too. Allegedly, if you know, you know. If you know, you know.
Baby,
you know, if you know about that Adreno, you know Diddy probably going crazy for a lot of different reasons in that courtroom. Why they put her on the stand with that baby in her stomach like that? You know, knowing how these devils get down. That nigga going crazy right now. That Adreno got him going nuts. Look at him.
Yeah.
That nigga went from about to collapse to that nigga just like levitated damn near out the casket. He was in the casket. That nigga looking like fresh blood. Crazy. If you know, you know. If you don't know, do your homework. You know, but Anthony, I appreciate you. Salute to the Rec Mall. We here. Shit, wow. Salute, my boy.
You got a chance to hear some of my songs.
Say it again? Nah, I got you. Though. I got you. I'm on it today. All right, peace. Run the lights up. If you know, you know. Niggas is saying in the chat room, Dracula Diddy. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you just gotta catch up to the Blackout show or just do your homework.
Not the blood.
Salute to the Rec Mob. They got Cassie on the stand. And she about to pop any minute.
She most definitely about to pop.
To accept.
Peace.
Peace, man. What it do?
Janie B. What up, though?
What up, though? Did you get all the stuff my son sent you?
Where he sent it to?
He sent it to this? he sent the link to this number yesterday.
All right, I got a C because this number, depending on what it is, I won't get everything. Let me see. Let me try to look at the text messages.
She's real pretty.
What's his area code? Because
he did it through my phone.
Your phone?
313.
313, let me see. 313. Let me look at text messages. Let me see. 313. I'm going through the text messages. I don't see it.
Want him to resend it?
Yeah, tell him resend it while I'm live now. Tell him.
Okay.
So Janie B, give me your assessments real quick while Cassie's on the stand, damn near about to go in labor.
Somebody said something to me that I didn't even think about.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that you, when you asked me about what I went through,
mm-hmm.
and I broke down how you could never forget certain details.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said to me, I wouldn't have never listened to her had you not broke it down like that. Like, you cannot forget these horrific things
mm-hmm.
that happened to you. It's almost like they happened to you yesterday. With her telling her story, like, I believed it before she got up there.
Mm.
You can't fake some of this stuff. You just can't fake it.
Mm-hmm.
Before they showed her in the hallway of the hotel room, I believed her.
Mm. Understood. Mm.
But I'm gonna have my son.
Since 1936, Kansas City calls Everett Milberger Pest Control for effective and professional.
They got him on there in his voice telling. I forget the guy's name, but when I look back at my notes, I'll tell you. It was one of his assistants, male assistants. He on there telling his male assistant, who, by the way, he pushed into doing something with Cassie. He on there telling him to bring the Plan B, the Cialis, and the baby oil.
God damn.
Oh, Lord.
Crazy.
And he doing an interview on ABC. This is, so, yeah, I'm going to get my son to shoot that to you right now.
Yeah, do me a favor. Send it to the email. I directly get it. mrectvpromo@gmail.com. Can your email from the phone?
Let me get back to where they do.
Wait a minute, say it again.
I'm going to put on the screen right now. mrectvpromo@gmail.com.
Oh,
Same way mrectv is spelled, and then promo@gmail.com. All right? So look, it's on the screen.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Janie B, I appreciate
6.5 years since the death of the mother of 4 of Sean Diddy Combs' children. Kim Porter tragically died of pneumonia, and the two of them will be in the same room face to face. The defense called it a moment to witness closure. What we will witness, though, is testimony where she will try to bridge the gap over an 11-year period of what the prosecution has described as abuse and violence and coercion and intimidation, all to have her engage in these so-called freak-offs, days-long drug-fueled sex encounters without consent. But just now in the courtroom, I witnessed something truly interesting. They are arguing as we speak with the judge over whether Cassie Ventura's husband can be in the audience. Cassie Ventura has just taken the stand. You're going to watch, and we will see in just a moment.
That makes no sense to me.
Cassie Ventura
Is he scared of a man?
In less than a month or so, confronted face to face with Sean Diddy Combs, her boyfriend and lover of more than a decade. The first time they'll be together. Now they want to make sure that her husband could not be in the courtroom. The defense is saying they may call Mr. Fine, who, remember, is a physical trainer who Diddy hired to actually train Cassie Ventura.
Laura, I want to let you go because the government is calling Cassie Ventura to the stand, so you got to get back in there. Thank you, Laura.
I will be your eyes and ears. We'll be right back. Thanks.
I know you will be. All right, and we're joined now by CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Elliot Williams and entertainment attorney and former litigator Lisa Bonner. All right, so Cassie Ventura is about to take the stand. Why is she so crucial to the prosecution's case?
Right, again, and Laura touched on this a little bit, it's important to step back and remember what Sean Combs is charged with here. It's racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation of people. Now, it's far broader than simply these allegations of sexual abuse or physical abuse. Now, what Cassie Ventura, what the prosecution says was established with her, is not just that the abuse happened, but that it happened for the purpose of threatening, coercing, or forcing people, her and others, into forced sexual activity. And in fact, the video that we saw yesterday allegedly happened immediately before or in the process of one of these quote-unquote freak-offs, suggesting that
the prosecution only proves domestic violence. That is not enough under the law for the federal charges that he's facing. I think the prosecution would say we can meet all of the elements of all of the federal crimes. You know, you don't do that through one witness or through two witnesses. The trial is just beginning. Today is day one. So, you know, as a trial lawyer, I know that we have to get a little piece here from a witness, a little piece there from another witness, and you have to wait to the end to see if it's all been there. The point of opening statements is to lay it all out so people understand what they're trying to do, right? And we can't, as trial attorneys, jump up and say, here's why I'm putting this witness on. It's because of element 2 of charge 3. We can't do that. So we all have to kind of hang in there, listen to all of the evidence, and see at the end whether they've proved their case. We filed our case on behalf of Dawn Richard, who is a very prominent musician, was on Making the Band. We filed her case, and then a week later, the government filed this case. And we said at the time it was similar, and it is strikingly similar. So, but the government has powers that I don't have as a private attorney. The government mainly can have an FBI raid, go in, take his hard drives, take documents, right, get text messages. So I am very interested in what evidence they obtain. I can subpoena witnesses for my case. If I'm watching witnesses in this case and I find them to be helpful, I can subpoena them.
Is your client expected to testify in this case?
I do have a client who is going to be testifying in this case. I'm not at liberty to reveal who that is.
So you're kind of in advance testimony and the head of her.
I am watching the case very closely. Yes, I will do whatever I need to do to fight for my clients.
Clients. She said clients. Did she say clients? This was yesterday.
Don't worry.
How you feeling?
Okay. But who is that guy right there? You can't.
Is that Kim Porter daddy? His papa?
The guy with the glasses and the chain and the black. How you doing, brother? We're not familiar with you. Who are you, sir?
Patriots, I just got out of.
Excuse us.
Guys, I'm not gonna follow it.
I got the shot they can check it right now. Back up. Back up.
This beating was to keep her there and coerce her there.
So, Lisa, to bring you in, what do you think the defense strategy will be when cross-examining Ventura? And we should also note, and this seems important, and we've been talking about this, she's pregnant. She's, I believe, several months pregnant. So how will that also play into the cross-examining, do you think, Lisa? Do you think, Lisa?
Well, they are going to try to establish that she was a willing participant, that she knowingly engaged into this relationship with Combs. It is no secret in the entertainment industry and the music industry that Cassie Ventura did not have the strongest voice, and she did not have a lot of other options in terms of signing a recording contract. So they're going to say that, listen, you went after Combs. You went and tried to establish a sexual relationship for the benefit of furthering your music career. Now, it is also important to remember that Cassie is visibly pregnant. Her husband, they want her husband in the courtroom to show that she is now moved past that she is in a loving relationship. And that is possible only because that she is now in a consensual and healthy relationship. But one of the things that they're also going to try to prove is that she was, consenting and that she stayed in this relationship. But one thing I have not heard people talk about is the Stockholm syndrome, where
Absolutely.
where the victims often identify with their abusers, right? So it happens a lot in child abuse cases. So they're going to try and say that she consented. It's important to say, no, what did the defendant do to make her feel like that she could not leave the relationship?
So we're getting more information now coming in from our reporters who were inside the courtroom. They're not allowing, this is a federal trial, so there's no video, audio, live coverage allowed, but we're getting reports from our reporters inside. And under questioning from the prosecution, Cassie Ventura said some arguments between her and Combs would be violent and result in, quote, some sort of physical abuse. What do you make of that?
Well, again, the domestic violence, the defense has owned it. They have set that out, and they're trying to say, listen, we are not here to litigate a domestic violence case. This is turning on consent. In any sexual relationship, consent is explicit. She did not, at what point did she no longer consent to being in this relationship? How did Combs use his influence, his sphere of influence, to manipulate her, to blackmail her into staying? He paid all of her bills. She never put out another record after the first record that he was released, and that was a carrot that he continuously dangled in front of her face to try and get her and manipulate her into staying. Again, this was through his business, and that is what the prosecution has to hone in on and really have people to testify to that there was not consent, and that he did use people under his employ to facilitate this relationship.
Elliot, I want to bring you in on this point that Combs arrived in court yesterday holding a Bible. He was seen reading passages during opening statements. Why does the defense want the jury to see that?
Oh, absolutely. Now, the whole process is designed around giving the defendant a fair trial. That's how the judge rules. Now, both parties are doing things to ensure that their side of the case looks better, and it is in a defendant's interest to be seen reading the Bible. This happens all throughout trials. So, for instance, can the defendant come in wearing a prison jumpsuit? This was something that they debated prior to the trial. Can he have dyed hair? As you notice, some of the courtroom drawings have noticed, his hair is dyed. How does that change how the jury sees him and how they may regard the things he says? There was even a fight or a debate over, can the jury see Cassie Ventura walking into the courtroom because she is 7 or 8 months pregnant right now? How will that affect how the jury regards her testimony? And judges are constantly having to resolve questions like this. Now, nothing precludes a defendant from reading a Bible. There's nothing wrong with it, but certainly it was a deliberate choice, I think it's fair to say, by the defense team to have jurors see this person who's accused of horrific acts reading a Bible.
And I just want to go back to you, Lisa, because, and I want to make clear, this idea that the government is pushing the prosecution, that Combs was using his own enterprises and businesses to further the scheme. Those are all allegations from the government. And the defense is saying that's not true. The defense is saying, look, he may have engaged in bad behavior. He may have engaged in domestic abuse. That video is really disturbing from the hotel. But he was not part of this racketeering scheme. He is not a sex trafficker, and he should not be found guilty on that. Do you think that that's a compelling argument for the jury?
Well, I mean, what else does the defense have to really offer? I mean, the fact that, one, they've already owned the domestic violence, and so that is something that they have already owned. But the other allegations against Combs in terms of the RICO charge, we have R. Kelly, who was convicted just across the river in the Eastern District of New York of very similar RICO charges. And so what they are, again, alleging is the fact that he used his businesses to lure people into a recording contract in Cassie Ventura's case, and then basically held that over her head in terms of a carrot and never released another album after her initial single that was released. And they are alleging again that this was done against her will. The defense really does not have any other alternative except to own this and to say no, that this was a legitimate business. But it's important also to remember that a RICO case does not have to, the criminal enterprise does not have to exist solely for the purposes of a company. It could be a part of the company. And so that is important to remember in all of these allegations in terms of RICO. They need to establish that it is a conspiracy, that he used his company, to lure these people. And these are very damning allegations.
Right, and we're just reading some of what's coming in from the courtroom. And at one part, and this sort of goes to your point earlier, Lisa, she said, look, I was confused. I loved him. I just wanted to make him happy. I was nervous, all of those feelings. And we don't have the full context around that. But of course, we know prior to that, they were talking about the relationship and the alleged violence that occurred there. All right, Lisa Bonner, Elliot Williams, thank you so much.
This is what I looked like before. Today, I want to tell you the top 5 reasons why I thought it was a good idea.
Let's see what's next. Hold on.
As I speak right now, Cassandra Ventura has taken the stand. Now, unfortunately, in this case, in a federal case, there are no cameras in the courtroom. There is no audio in the courtroom. But we are going to do our best to report to you in real time what is happening with her testimony and analyzing her testimony in real time. And we're going to also be taking your questions about this testimony, about the case in general, as it progresses. So if you have a question, submit it on YouTube. We will answer it here on air. I'm not going to do it alone. I have with me here in studio Rich Schoenstein, trial attorney. It was great to see you. Rich, thanks for jumping here so quickly. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Big day in this trial.
This is a big day because she is victim number 1 in this case. I think it would be fair to say we probably wouldn't have criminal charges if it wasn't for Cassandra Ventura filing her lawsuit in November of 2023. We all know that the videotape of her purportedly being beaten by Sean Combs in 2016 changed the course of this entire legal saga. It came up a lot yesterday. She came up a lot yesterday. And now her testifying for the prosecution, I think a fair argument is this case either rises or falls with her testimony. So what has she testified to so far? Well, first of all, she's quite pregnant. She's about 8.5 months. 9 months pregnant. She's 38 years old. She explained that she was with Sean Combs for 10 years. We're talking about a 17-year age difference. She admitted that during the course of their relationship, he introduced her to certain sex acts. She asked to describe the relationship she had with him. Quote, there were violent arguments that would usually result in some sort of physical abuse, dragging, different things of that nature. Again, why is this important? He's charged with sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. He's charged with racketeering conspiracy, a criminal enterprise, underlying crimes like sex trafficking, kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction, and also transporting sex workers for purposes of prostitution. She went on to say that he would stomp her in the head if she was down. There was frequent violence. She would have black eyes. She would have bruises. She was asked by the prosecution to describe what a freak-off was. And she said, quote, it basically entails the hiring of an escort and setting up this experience so that I could perform for Sean. It involved Combs being able to watch with me, the other person, and actually direct us on what we were doing. Eventually, it became a job for me, pretty much. And by the way, this comes after the testimony of a male performer who says he was hired by Cassandra Ventura and Sean Combs to have sex with Cassie in front of Sean Combs. She described how their relationship was quite complex. Talking about these freak-offs when she was first introduced to them, she says, I was confused, nervous, but also loved him very much. She explained how Sean Combs ultimately controlled a lot of her life. She talked about blackmail materials, so videos that Combs purportedly shot of her during these sexual encounters. She was concerned that they would be published, they would be released. Quote, he had many resources to do that. She was shown the 2016 video of that hallway attack, as I mentioned. She confirmed it was after a freak-off, which is important, because while the defense would say this is an unfortunate incident of domestic violence, and domestic violence is not sex trafficking, she has confirmed that this was after a freak-off. This was in furtherance of sex trafficking. She says she was afraid that if she said no to him, it would make him angry. So again, we're going to get more of her testimony in real time. So far, Rich, from what I've said, what are you taking away from her testimony?
Well, obviously, this is a horrendous relationship, and she suffered a lot. I think the defense is arguing, in essence, that she was a consensual, willing participant in this relationship. It was a 10-year relationship. It had ups and downs, and the defense is arguing that some of the things she argues now she was forced to do, she did willingly and perhaps even enjoyed at the time. So that's what we're getting at. But this is really shocking stuff for a jury to have to hear all of this, and I think see some of it is coming up.
Don't you think that there is a potential problem for the prosecution? Because we heard it, it was funny. We have a question from TDB. Jesse, does the male dancer's testimony about Cassie contradict the prosecution's opening statement? Now, he had testified that he thought he heard Sean Combs slapping her, that there were instances where he saw him dragging her, but at the same time, he was getting paid by her. He was texting her. She was participating in these freak-offs. You wonder, this case is a thin line. Was it coercion or not? Was she a victim or partner in this? Do you think when you hear the testimony of that male dancer and you hear her testimony?
So just in case all of you didn't know, the government is actually lying to us and stealing from us. The last stimulus check that
victim or partner in this? Do you think when you hear
At
the
one
testimony
point, she was a
of that
partner,
male
then
dancer
she
and you
became
hear
a
her
victim.
testimony now, it'll be difficult for the jury to believe that everything was coerced and against her will?
I don't think the jury is going to believe that everything was coerced and against her will at the time, but it doesn't have to. There's a massive power imbalance here. So even if she willingly participated for parts of this relationship, he has all of the power and he's using it.
Facts.
And the one thing you mentioned, I wrote down, blackmail video. That stuff's really important to the case, right? This is carrot and stick territory, but he kept, allegedly, things like these videos to keep people in line. And the allegation here is if she sort of got a little bit antsy about how the relationship was going, he would threaten to release videos that would destroy any chance of her having a career.
The defense would say the only person that was in possession of the videos was Cassandra Ventura. That's a point that they made yesterday.
That's an evidentiary point. I don't know the answer to that.
Let me ask you this. We have a question from Lauren, who, by the way, has this cute little, emoji, smiley face with the hearts. I like it. It's nice. I have a question. Do you think now that the prosecution has played their ace with Cassie, that they have more damning evidence to come?
I would expect so, because when you're prosecuting a case like this, you want to start strong. And I think some of the idea of putting her on in day 2 of this trial is to start strong. They put on a little corroborating testimony first, right, from this dancer, escort, whatever you want to call him. And now they have her, the security guard, and they get to show the video, that horrible video. And now she testifies. But it can't be the prosecution's plan to try this case that now they're just going to wind their way through some other inconsequential witnesses. I mean, they have 2 more victims, as I understand it.
Well, let's talk about this. The practical reality is, A, they need to get her on the stand before she gives birth, okay?
Well, that's true, too. That's true. Good point.
Yeah, because victim 3 is nowhere to be found, so they may have to make sure that victim 1 is still available. But also, I agree that they started very strong with corroborating evidence before they brought her on, because what happened? When she filed her lawsuit in November of 2023, made these wild allegations, I think people said, how do we know this is true or not? As soon as that video was released by CNN, the whole game changed because people not only believed that particular incident in the complaint, they believed overall all the allegations that she made. And it seems the prosecution is doing just that. Now, it's interesting thinking about this. By the way, I'm going to give more updates about her testimony. So right now, Ventura said, I thought we were monogamous. The prosecutor asked, was it made public? No, I was his artist, also his family, his children, meaning their relationship wasn't public yet. Who was linked to him publicly? Kim Porter, Miss Ventura responds. How did Sean treat you at this time? We had fun. So a lot of this is talking about the beginnings of their relationship. And she has to concede some points, right? She can't just say, it was a disaster at the very beginning. I hated him from the very beginning. I was under a distress from the very beginning. There has to be an aspect to it where she explains, no, I started this relationship. I was young. I was excited, but then it devolved, right? In order to be credible on the stand about the story, I think.
I agree with that. And also to acknowledge that there were benefits to her of being in this relationship. It would, at least in theory, help her career. It would get her to meet people that she otherwise wouldn't have been able to meet. So all of that is true. There's nothing wrong with her conceding that because none of that justifies being dragged down a hallway and beaten.
Exactly. And by the way, we jumped on here on air immediately as soon as we found out that Cassandra Ventura was officially taking the stand. And one thing that makes Law and Crime a little bit different than other outlets like that is our viewers, not only do we value our viewers, but we are making content right now purely for our viewers on YouTube. We want to give you the most up-to-date information about this case in real time. And again, we are the only channel, the only news organization that is producing content for you specifically. We value that. YouTube is where the most hard cutting edge news is coming from, and we want to get it out to you as quickly as possible. So thank you so much to our supporters. We are going to continue to take your questions for a while now, because she's going to be on the stand. So let's keep it going. Again, thank you to our YouTube audience. Jane, are there any more witnesses to Cassie getting attacked by Diddy apart from the bodyguard? I mean, I don't know. I would imagine so.
Yeah, I don't know either. There's a videotape, so that's kind of a witness. But yes, I would imagine there are other witnesses who are going to talk about the relationship and probably talk about some of the physical stuff.
Well, they mentioned chiefs of staff. They mentioned a chef. They mentioned one of the questions from the defense yesterday was, how is this a conspiracy, right? For a conspiracy, you need two or more people to agree. Yeah. Who are the people that coordinated and facilitated this racketeering and sex trafficking?
One, whoever he grabbed with him to go and hunt her down with a gun, excuse me, whoever he used to blow up somebody's car with a cocktail. Yeah, that's a conspiracy. Yeah, he has people on staff with him that goes out and hunt people down like a pimp go get his hoe, right, with a gun, drag her ass back. And then when somebody's dating somebody and he goes and throws fireballs, that's a conspiracy.
Operation are not criminally charged.
So I see two major hurdles for the prosecution in this case. One is what we've been talking about. They have to get past the idea that this is consensual behavior by other people who are behaving in a questionable fashion. They have to get past that. The second bigger hurdle to me is turning an abuse case into a racketeering case, right? Because yes, they have to prove RICO is very challenging. You have to prove a RICO enterprise. You have to prove a pattern of racketeering activity. You have to prove multiple predicate acts that are violations of separate federal laws. It is hard to sustain a RICO case. We've seen some other cases where people have tried. That's going to be a major hurdle here. The fact that he had this 10-year relationship, and even if it's arguably true, he took advantage of her, he treated her horribly, he beat her, he did all these terrible things to her, that's not racketeering.
I say that the prosecution spent so much time yesterday in their opening statement trying to explain to this jury why it's a crime. because it's not a garden variety trafficking or racketeering case. And I think the more they have to explain it, that's a problem for them. I think it's a weakness in their case, personally. Now we have an update from court. Prosecutor asked Cassandra Ventura, what was his lifestyle like? Ventura responds, he had all these assistants. He could get things done. He traveled quite a bit. And then apparently she's shown a photo, and she says, this is Sean and I at a strip club in New York, like 2007, 2008, Halloween. How did Sean Combs' moods vary? Day to day. Now look, he is charged with specific crimes that John Smith on the street can't meet. There is an argument here, very powerful, had all these businesses, different resources, different employees. He would be in the position to be able to carry out a sex trafficking or racketeering operation. That's what makes him unique, though.
Sure, but is that what he's doing? Is he running an entertainment and fashion industry, or is he running essentially a criminal organization?
By the way, we have a poll up right now. You can participate in it. Do you think Cassie Ventura was a victim or partner in this? Ready for this? 82%. Well, this doesn't make sense. 82% say yes. I don't know if that's yes to, I think we need clarification. 82% say victim or partner. We'll get a clarification on that.
By the way,
right now.
But that's my answer to that question.
Oh, okay. 82% say victim. 82% say victim. Maybe based on we're reporting on the testimony right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think she is a victim if the allegations are true, but also she is involved in some of the criminal act. I mean, she's getting those prostitutes, right? She's making payments to them, allegedly. She's having them come. So she's involved in some of the alleged criminal activity. And that's an interesting point that wouldn't just apply to her. Other people in his orbit might be some combination of victim and co-conspirator.
But you know what? That video changes everything, because the argument would be, what do you think happens if she says no?
Yeah.
What do you think happens if she says, I'm not in the mood for a freak off tonight. I'm not going to pay the dancer. That's what's going to happen. That video is arguably the most important piece of evidence because it sets the stage when we're talking about coercion or force. Question from Angelina. How old was Cassie when they first started dating? I think she was 19 years old. So you're talking about a 17-year age difference. That's important. I think that's an important factor if you're talking about power and control, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that he's older and obviously has much more power anyway.
Sherry Williams asks, what kind of time is Diddy facing if he's found guilty? Do you want me to, I have it listed unless you want me to answer that one.
I would say life in prison, but you can tell me specifically.
So this is exactly what he would be facing. So if he's convicted of one count of racketeering conspiracy, I pulled this up because I figured people might be curious. If he is convicted of racketeering conspiracy, the top charge, that is a maximum sentence of life in prison. You know what the minimum is for that? Well, okay, so that's life in prison. Maximum sentence for sex trafficking, life in prison. You know what the minimum is for sex trafficking? 50.
Why are women everywhere choosing Abby X, the new tummy tuck alternative? I got the tummy tuck
is for sex trafficking, 15 years in prison. And then the transportation for purposes of prostitution carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Rich, I have to tell you, I don't know about racketeering. I don't know about sex trafficking if he's going to be convicted of those. I am fairly confident he's going to be convicted of allegedly transporting sex workers with the intent that they engage in prostitution. Their argument, as far as I understood yesterday, their defense yesterday was he hired people for their time and experience.
Let me tell you something. If he gets out of this trial only convicted of transporting for prostitution, that is a defense victory. They would take that in a heartbeat, I bet.
Because I think if he is convicted of that, he might not get 10 years. He might get, a shorter amount and time served, his time already in the MDC. I don't know, but it wouldn't be life in prison. Wouldn't be 15 years.
Yeah, he might not get full 10 years. He might not get the hardest prison term, the hardest prison life, right? He would get out. He would still have a life. He would still have his enterprise. So I think that would actually be a defense victory, all things considered.
So we have an update from court. I think she's describing what the alleged abuse was like. She talks about anger, zoning out, She was asked, how did this impact you? She says, greatly. The next thing I knew, I was getting hit in the face. She also apparently talks about psychological abuse. He'd tell me to watch my mouth, change my face. So, I do wonder, that has a strong impact, because there's another case that we're covering right now. It's the Alexander brothers. And they're being charged with sex trafficking. And the argument you hear from defense attorneys is this is a very novel way to charge individuals. That if you're talking about romantic relationships or girlfriends or flings, and you're taking them on trips, you're paying for their meals, you're buying them gifts, maybe you're promising things, romantic gestures, are we now in a position where romantic relationships are just on the line of sex trafficking, or where does it differ?
Well, here
When you hire
he is
somebody to come in and
allegedly
screw.
bringing in prostitutes to participate in these freak-offs and paying them for sexual services. So that, to me, would clearly be sex trafficking if it's true. It's not just about the girlfriend. It's not just about the relationship. It's about these sex workers that he is moving about.
We have a question from Trune. What about male victims? Seems like this case is solely based on women victims.
This case appears to be based on women victims. I mean, I've heard speculation, too, about male victims. I don't know where that stands.
Well, there's lawsuits. There's a lot of lawsuits that have been filed by male victims. And I wonder, do you think that was intentional for the prosecution to not include those in this case? I mean, why weren't minor victims? Let me say this. He has been accused in lawsuits of abusing minors, okay? Allegations, accusations, okay, never been criminally charged. If you're the prosecution and you want a slam dunk case against Sean Combs, and you want justice for all of the alleged federal crimes he committed, the problem with the minor victim for a defendant like that is there's no consent defense anymore. Do you think it's like we want to be as specific as possible with these charges? We don't want to make this case overly broad. The bigger it becomes, the more risk it'll fall down. Thoughts?
I don't buy that. I think the prosecution wanted as many victims as it could get. But I think the prosecution had to scrutinize every potential victim to, first of all, are they going to show up, right? We have an issue with one of the three, whether or not they're going to show up. So they had to scrutinize that. And also, how are their claims? How are they going to be on cross-examination? How is it going to play? They wanted multiple victims. The only way this case is what it is because there are multiple victims. This is not a RICO case if it's just what he did to one person, no matter how horrible it was. That doesn't get you to racketeering. So he needs them. They need the multiple victims.
And that brings up a good question I have. If you read the indictment, let me just phrase that. There's been many superseding indictments.
Yeah.
It says alleged victims, right? Alleged victim 1, 2, 3, 4. But then it says victims including. Like victims, many victims, including alleged victim 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that mean we're going to hear other people who are not enumerated as one of the alleged victims, but are just other victims in the case? Because I don't.
It could be. They could bring people who are other victims in the case, especially the way the case is pled, the way the case is being tried. Now, they would have had to tell the defense by now who those potential witnesses are, and I assume, well, I don't know if we would have heard about it in this particular. Usually you would have heard about it. You would see it on the docket, but I don't know.
So talking about this alleged criminal enterprise and how, based on the opening statement from yesterday, he didn't just have staff who were helping him commit the crimes, but also covering them up. Just now, an update from court. Prosecutor asked Cassie Ventura, how would he keep tabs on you? To which she apparently responds, he didn't live far apart. We didn't live far apart. He'd send security to come find me or a trusted assistant. Like who? David James, Christina Coram, who we all know has been a central figure in this case. Maybe not the criminal case, but she's come up in lawsuits before. The prosecutor asks her, was your relationship exclusive? Ventura replies, no. If she's naming names like David James or Christina Coram, do they have to testify, you think?
I don't think they have to testify, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I would think this is all planned out, that she's going to indicate some people and then the prosecution is going to bring them in later in the trial to verify, right? One thing you really want to do with a witness like this, the defense is going to say that she's embellishing. they might say she's lying, but that's going to be a little hard to do with that video, right? They can't just say she's a liar, but they're going to say she's exaggerating, she's embellishing, they're painting it a certain way because of the case. So you have to bring in these corroborating witnesses and whatever other corroborating evidence you have to verify what it is she's saying. So it would be very useful, for example, if she says, yes, David James came around to check on me on behalf of Mr. Combs, and then David James takes the stand and says, yes, I did that.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Well, and yesterday they talked about the defense, her lawsuit in 2023, her attorney being in the courtroom, that she has an incentive, a monetary incentive to fabricate this situation. I've got a question from Daniela. By the way, we're taking your questions on YouTube about this case, about Cassandra Ventura's testimony that's happening in real time. We're trying to update you as quickly as possible about what she says in that courtroom. No cameras in the courtroom, no audio in the courtroom. So this is the best we can do to bring you her testimony in real time. Question from Daniela, 3984, talking about the video. What version of the hotel video was played in the courtroom? Was it the sped up version? Now, I believe it was portions of the surveillance video, not the CNN video, and cell phone video that was taken by the security guard who testified, Israel Flores. He had apparently taken a cell phone video of the surveillance footage to show his wife, but that became a big pretrial issue about what the jury was going to see.
Yeah. And by the way, that story was a little odd. I took a video of it to show my wife. For what purpose? I mean, that was a little strange.
Well, you're not going to believe this happened, even though he didn't report it to the police.
I think it's going to be difficult. I think the defense would like you to believe that video's been doctored somehow, but I think they're going to have trouble sustaining that.
Hey, would you like a civil law question?
Yes, please.
Yes, this is our litigator here. Question from Teodora Bodurova. Can Cassie sue Diddy again if Diddy's found guilty as charged?
So, Cassie, if you remember, sued Diddy. And that was the first thing we really heard about this. That was before the video. There was this blockbuster lawsuit in November of 2023 that really put these allegations out there. And she was very detailed. In fact, the front page of her lawsuit had a trigger warning on it. It was so detailed. That case was settled the next day. And I would have to think that the settlement included an agreement that she wouldn't sue him again for anything. Usually, if you're going to settle like that and pay the kind of money she would have gotten paid for settling that lawsuit, you get what is known as a general release. And a general release means you don't sue me for anything that happened. Now, here's one caveat. Up to the date of this agreement. Up to the date of this agreement. So then if you the next day punch me in the face, I have a new lawsuit against you.
Yeah.
Right? But at least up to the agreement, she can't go back now and say, I want more money.
Well, for the same conduct, right? I mean, if he comes out and he did something to her, or allegedly did something to her after the agreement was signed.
Yeah. Presumably they got it. And it also, you have to make sure the release covers all of his companies, all of these other individuals who were involved. It has to be a general release of everybody. You don't want to...
In our lively home, every day is special, but sometimes the world...
You don't want to leave any wiggle room to have a lawsuit.
We have a follow-up question to this from Fads. So why did he settle if he was innocent?
Well, I mean, people settle all the time when they think they're not liable. People, the thing that really surprised me when that case was filed is that the case was filed. Typically, in a case like that, you draft the complaint and you send it to the defendant and you say, dear sir, please pay me a boatload of money or I'm going to file this publicly in court. And if there's any merit to it, or if just for publicity reasons, the defendant decides to negotiate and pay, and it never goes to court. So it fascinated me at the time that she actually filed that publicly and he settled it the next day. that unfortunately was pretty telling, that he didn't put up any fight on the lawsuit. He didn't even want to litigate it. He didn't even want to go to discovery. He wanted to settle it immediately.
Right, because if it was
he
up to
would've
him, it would have waited
settled
right
it
there.
Before she filed it, I think we would have been in a very different position than we are today.
Oh, I totally agree, because that lawsuit, I think, is what sets this ship sailing.
I agree. Okay, update from court. Prosecutor asks Cassandra Ventura, did you see other men? Cassandra Ventura responds, yes. Prosecutor asks, did Sean see other women? Ventura responds, yes. He said, I am Puff Daddy. I was insanely jealous. Did you move to LA with him? Yes. He wanted to be close to his kids who were there. Goes to a theme from yesterday, where the defense owned up and said, yeah, he's jealous, he's angry, he's violent. He engaged in domestic violence. That 2016 video is indefensible. When you hear her testify like that, does it help the defense? Does it help the prosecution? Because the defense got in front of it. They didn't say he's a saint.
Well, it helps the prosecution, but the defense did the correct thing in opening statement, and they had to do it. They didn't have any choice. I mean, the defense couldn't walk into this trial and say he's the victim of a conspiracy to invent evidence against him. That was never going to work. The thing's on video, and there's lots of other evidence. So they were going to have to say he is not a delightful guy. You people on the jury probably aren't going to like things that he did. He did engage in things we consider domestic violence, but this is a racketeering case. And I liked that about the opening statement. They made that very clear. You're going to have to judge the crimes alleged here, not whether you...
So he was always being like, shout out to Biggie. That's crazy, right? That's crazy. Let's see what Inner City has. The jury's gonna look. An unbelievable, personal opinion. And what this woman has gone through, I'm gonna be real. What she went through, she went through. And there's people out here in the chat being like, oh, you so biased, blah, blah, blah. Have you seen the video? You mean to tell me Diddy didn't put his hands and feet on this woman? That for sure happened.
That's without question. So if I'm going to be biased, I'm going to be biased on that one. On that moment. Because you cannot deny that those things happened. All right? But I digress. We are here for the testimony and the thing that we've all been waiting for. So this is going to be a wild, wild ride. Hold on to your butts, because this is getting crazy. Heads up also, just another heads up. There will be a lot of code words I'm going to be saying, because there's a lot of stuff, very bad stuff that she says in here. Okay?
Let's hear this.
Some really bad stuff in here. You've been warned. Let's get into it.
Let's go.
So, this is from 2 hours ago, just so you know. Okay? Sean Combs appears nervous as he went to the holding area for the break before Cassie took her testimony. He adjusted his clothing and he glanced over to one of his sons. The rest of his family just had left the room already. He usually has a big smile for his row of supporters, but this time he appeared stoic. Why? Because the mother-loving nervous. So they call Cassie to the stand. Her husband is now in the courtroom as well. The defense drops its objections, and Sean Combs' family is returning. Cassie Ventura, she shows up. Of course, she was a former partner of Sean Combs, and she enters the room, brown turtleneck dress, ahead of her widely anticipated testimony, and we all have been anticipating this. The body-hugging dress highlights that Ventura is in the third trimester of a... So, hopefully it's a healthy birth and all that, right? Anyway, the government began by asking Cassie Ventura about the arguments she had with Sean Combs over the course of their romantic relationship. Ventura then said arguments would often end in physical attacks. He would knock me over, drag me, use his feet on me, period. Okay? Stomp on my head if I was down. This is what she said. And of course, Lil Rod apparently was in the courtroom today too. He's been making quite the appearance since yesterday as well. I mean, Jaguar Wright is out there too. I mean, everybody named Mama is out here. Okay, everybody. Shout out to Make It Make Sense, Tisa Tells, Armand Wiggins, everybody named Mama out there. Okay, man, I wish I was out there. Trust me, I wish I was out there. But there's gonna be another big star that's gonna get hit with some sort of lawsuit, and maybe one day I'll be out there. Okay, moving on. Cassie Ventura is testifying about the freak-offs, which she says Diddy introduced to her within the first year of their relationship. So again, this is not an old thing, or this is not a new thing, okay? Definitely not an old thing. He's done this before with somebody else for sure. That's just my assumption, okay?
Kim Porter.
But moving on. Sean proposed to this idea, this echelon encounter that he called voyeurism at the time. They asked what a freak-off entailed. Cassie said it included the hiring of a male worker and setting up this experience and performing. Diddy would direct the performance, she said. Cassie had her eyes down, recounting this, pausing to slowly exhale. I just remember my stomach falling to my butt. Just the nervousness and confusion in that moment. This is what Cassie said, recounting her feelings when she first learned about the nature of a freak-off. She was 22 at the time and didn't have a concept how that would be a turn-on. So she didn't really understand how this voyeurism, this freak-off stuff, would be a turn-on for anybody. Remember, she's 22 years old. And there's other information in here that he was taking care of her, he was teaching her things at a very young age.
Grooming. Like
Some would call that, grooming. Okay?
Grooming.
So moving on. But Cassie said she loved Combs Diddy very much and wanted to make him happy. Cassie didn't feel she had much of a choice but to participate in these freak-offs, she testified. Cassie, who described herself as naive and a total people pleaser, feared making him angry or uncomfortable with a rejection. Diddy controlled much of her life, she said. Later, Cassie feared that she would be blackmailed with videos and images of her participation in these freak-offs, as well as threatened with physical pain, with attacks. He had many resources to spread those images on the internet, she said. It was always in the back of my mind that I would somehow be hurt by him. Sean is a really polarizing person, also very charming. So it's hard to be able to decide in that moment what you need when he's telling you what he wants. So it's hard to be able to decide in that moment what you need when he's telling you what he wants. That's very interesting. Asked about what she knew about Sean Combs before she met him, she said, I just knew that he was this larger-than-life entrepreneur / musician. I was a fan of his music. She was around 19 years old when she signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Records, the label that, of course, Diddy founded in early 2006. About a quarter of the dozens of people who have filed SA lawsuits against Diddy also claim they were aspiring entertainers when they fell into his orbit. Okay, so of course, this is not an old thing, right? Let's see. She was on her way to massive pop stardom. Then she met Diddy. That's something else. Let's go back here. So moving on. The government was going back in time a bit, prompting Cassie to recall her early interactions with Diddy when he was her boss, but not yet her boyfriend. So Cassie described Diddy kissing her in a hotel suite around the time of her 21st birthday in Las Vegas. She said she was confused by the kiss and she recalled crying and running off. She was a new artist, didn't know the lay of the land, and wasn't used to an executive acting in a sexual or romantic way, she added. Of course, we already know about this not being broadcast. So let's move on.
Oh, wow.
Asked by prosecutors why she thought she sought Diddy's company, Cassie said, "I wanted to be around Diddy for the same reasons as everyone else at the time. This exciting, entertaining, fun guy who also happened to have my career in his hands. I felt special because not a lot of people got that time with him," Cassie says. After Sean Combs kissed her on her 21st birthday, Cassie testified he would invite her to meetings in hotel rooms in New York. She said she felt nervous. She felt nervous excitement about these. We were going to talk about music, or we're going to talk about what's next, Cassie recalled thinking. Over this period of time, Diddy introduced her to Top. We got to use these code words, okay? And this is what she said, okay? "He just kind of made me feel crazy for not reciprocating after he performed it on her for the first time," she recounted. She said she was, quote unquote, completely sexually inexperienced at that time in the bedroom, okay?
So she was a virgin.
And was in a relationship with another person. Cassie traced the beginning of her romantic relationship with Diddy to a trip the pair took in Miami a few months after her 21st birthday. It was the first time they had, relations, the hibbity-dibbity, Cassie said. And the first time she intentionally took X. After that trip, we were just together, she said. I'd become one of his girlfriends after that trip. At the time, Cassie thought they might be in a monogamous relationship. I can't say naive enough, she said, describing her mindset at the time. Prosecution witness Cassie described being enamored by Diddy in the early part of their relationship. I really fell in love with him, she said, describing herself as a little shadow who followed him around. She thought it was, quote unquote, my first real adult relationship. But as the relationship continued, Diddy exercised more control over Ventura's life, such as how she looked, whom she was speaking to, and what she was working on that day, she testified. She said he was an incessant caller and would have staff, assistants, and security continuously pester her until he found you. What in the what?
Stalker. He's a stalker.
Remember what they said. Taking a quick break here. Remember what they said.
He's a stalker.
They said in the beginning in the very beginning of the testimony, very beginning of the trial, prosecution said he will go out of his way to find you. He will find you. He will do everything he can to make sure you are found. He will not let you go. He will not let you free. He will just continue to make sure he has full control over you. You can't escape me. That's basically what it is. Right? During her testimony, Cassie has been pausing to take slow, deep breaths. Yeah, I get it. I'm sure the trauma just keeps on bubbling up, right? She also has been running her hands over her belly and adjusting herself in her chair. Yeah, this is uncomfortable, I'm sure. And I'm sure it's making the baby that is growing inside of her right now uncomfortable as well, right? Cassie testified about the psychological A she experienced with Diddy. She said she always had to be working on something. Diddy would check in to make sure she was doing so. This included submitting a list of songs she was working on to him. A lot of songs I didn't actually come out. She said, describing the tasks as busy work and just control over what I was doing every minute of the day. When Cassie ignored Diddy, he would call constantly and sometimes send a security agent or trusted assistant to her home. It was part of Diddy's security staff's job, Cassie said, to keep an eye on her. So again, like I said, as much as she thinks she can maybe get away, run away, get as far away from this dude, she could not, because there was always somebody keeping tabs on her, which is insane. Cassie is recalling her time in Los Angeles with Diddy. She said she moved there because Diddy wanted to be closer to his children, some of whom were living in California at the time. I wasn't ready to be out of New York, she said, but she followed him because I was in love. And I wanted to be near him. Before that, Ventura described being gifted a New York City apartment by Combs. He paid the rent and lived nearby. Cassie and Diddy also paid. Cassie said Diddy also paid for some of her apartments in Los Angeles. He had his own keys and would enter whenever he wanted. So again, if he can come in and he can do whatever the hell he wants, clearly she couldn't go and just do her thing. Couldn't go and just date other guys and all. This is just another example of absolute control over a person. Cassie Ventura described recording hundreds of songs over the span of her relationship with Diddy, enough to compromise 9 albums for her 10-album record deal with his label Bad Boy. None of the songs were ever released, she said. She received no compensation for her work, and her career stalled, she added. That's insane, right? Asked about why she didn't release another album, Ventura inhaled deeply and gave a small smile. Are you asking me? Combs controlled the releases, she said, and added that the majority of her time with Diddy was spent at parties or in recovery from them. The freak-offs became a job, she said. There was no space to do anything else. Now, of course, they went on a break, okay? Now, of course, there's going to be more that's going on. But we're going to other places because they got all kinds of different thizzangs going on, right?
She was supposed to replace J-Lo.
But nonetheless, this trial, I'm sorry, is insane, okay? And absolutely heartbreaking. So we're hopping over to the New York Times just to see what is being said here too. Okay, I've got it outside. Oh, this is interesting. Just really quick. So before Cassie's testimony, Diddy's children and other family members gathered outside the courtroom in a circle with their heads bowed to pray. They were there praying.
Take the Lord along with me.
They were there praying.
Everywhere you go.
And here's the other thing too. As far as somebody said she was not talented, Cassie, and that's the reason why the music never came out.
Well, J-Lo wasn't either.
Did we ever get a chance? Did the public ever get a chance to say yes, she's got some great stuff, or no, she doesn't? They never put out any music. They put out, she had her few hits in the beginning, but that was it. She had other opportunities to do more stuff, but like I said, come on now. How would we know if she was talented or not if she never got the opportunity to show her talent? You see what I'm saying?
She was supposed to replace
And she did
J-Lo.
have hits. You know what I mean? Nicole B, you ain't wrong. She had hits. So again, there was still an opportunity for her to put out something, and she didn't get a chance to do that. Yeah, J-Lo has plenty of albums, and a lot of people think she ain't got no talent.
Exactly.
Okay. So something's not right here. Okay. So let's continue. So they, sorry. So they're bowing their heads down to pray. That's before the testimony, which is, that's funny. Okay. Sorry. That's just funny to me. So Diddy turned to look at her, but Ventura stares straight ahead. I wouldn't want to look at him either. He took notes at times during her testimony. Wasn't he also yesterday with a Bible? Didn't he walk in there with a damn Bible? Didn't he have a Bible? Didn't he bring in a Bible? Yesterday? Why?
Why sit there and read a Bible now? Why are you suddenly trying to find God now? Should have found God when you were doing, when you were allegedly doing all this stuff, man. Crazy. A black Bible? Yeah. He literally walked in that mug. I'm sorry, it's funny. Because it's like, oh, I care about, oh my God-fearing man. I'm reading the book. I found God. I went to therapy. I went to rehab.
He said, I need the Lord.
I'm just a man. Come on, y'all.
Take the
Come on. It's
Lord
it's for show, guys. It's for show. Especially when it comes to this Cassie stuff, you can miss me with the nonsense, okay? While testifying, Ventura spoke in a calm and measured voice, her voice sometimes catching or quieting to a whisper. The jurors are focused entirely on her during previous witnesses' testimony. They were looking around the courtroom at times. Yeah, of course, everybody in the moment's going to be like, shut up. You can basically hear a pin drop, okay? You can hear a pin drop. So after a break, she has returned to the stand wearing a light yellow coat. The judge had remarked that the courtroom was cold. This was 20 minutes ago. But let me roll back a little bit more, because I thought that there was going to be hold on. Because of course they're giving us updates right now. But let's go back a little bit more. Here we go. Some good stuff. Here's the good stuff. The meat and the potatoes. But yeah, he was in there with a dumb Bible. Right in there, reading the dumb Bible. But let's go. Here's some other stuff here. Good. I'm glad we see it now. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Ventura is visibly pregnant, 8.5 months. Sean Combs said. Sean Combs' lawyer said. The prosecutors offer her water, and she is expected to take a couple breaks. Okay. In what could be 4 days of testimony. Oh my Lord. 4 days. Diggity damn. Okay, 4 days of testimony. Here we go, guys. 4 days of testimony. Speaking softly on the stand and lifting a tissue to dab at her nose and eyes. Ventura is asked what she knew of Diddy when she met him around 2005, when she was only 19 years old. Shannon Sharp. I just knew that he was a larger-than-life entrepreneur, musician, was a fan of the music. I didn't know much about him personally. Soon after, she signed that 10-album deal with Diddy, or with Bad Boy. Moving on, Ventura was asked why she wanted to be around Diddy. I wanted to be around Sean for the same reasons as everyone else at that time. He was just exciting and entertaining, a fun guy that also happened to have, my career in his hands. So of course she's going to want to be around him at all times with all the fame and the power and the control over her career. Hell yeah.
And he paying no rent.
Cassie is describing life with
everything
Sean Combs
free ain't
once
free.
she started dating him. The lifestyle was much different, she says. He had assistants at his beck and call. He could get anything done quickly. He had respect from everyone, and he traveled quite a bit. At the beginning of the relationship with Diddy, she says, I think I was just enamored by him. We were just having a good time. They were just kicking it. Cassie is explaining the complexity of the relationship with Sean. At times, she is describing excitement, attraction, a whirlwind. Their romance began on a trip to Miami, like we just read in that other article, okay? Where they had relations on a boat, okay? And he gave her a blue dolphin X pill. But when she didn't answer his phone calls, she says he could call her incessantly, or have his assistants or security personnel track her down. See, his moods were extreme, Ventura says. He would object if she was being a quote-unquote brat. She adds, make the wrong face, and the next thing you know, I was getting hit in the face.
Sean Combs' security personnel was around 24
See
hours
her
a day,
daddy.
she says. Security protected him, kept an eye on me. Infidelity and jealousy were a part of their relationship, Cassie says. I was insanely jealous, she said. She was also insanely jealous. But she says she moved to Los Angeles because I was in love and I wanted to be near him. Cassie testifies she sometimes shifts in her seat and puts her hands on her pregnant belly. Cassie is talking about the apartments where she lived in Los Angeles and how close they were to Sean's house. At one apartment, she says they traveled between the buildings on a golf cart. That's how
So why
close they
she
lived
didn't live
to
with
each
him?
other. Okay, you could just hop on a golf cart and just get over to the other spot, which is insane. Prosecution star witness Cassie is deep into her testimony about her relationship with Sean Combs. She began by describing his physical attacks, okay? Dragging, kicking, stomping, okay? And her anxiety surrounding the voyeuristic, spicy activity that they did, that he introduced her to, now known to the public lexicon as freak-offs. Interesting how they said lexicon and freak-off in the same sentence, but that's another conversation in itself. Cassie went back to the beginning, describing how she met Diddy, fell in love, saw him taking more and more control over her life and career. She describes I don't even know how to pronounce it, mercurial personality who would pay for her rent in Manhattan, but also frequently tell her to fix your face and watch your mouth. If Diddy didn't find her or couldn't find her, he would send people to go find her. Okay? Excuse me, guys. There's like something in my throat. Anyway, she lived in Los Angeles. She had her own apartments, but Diddy had keys and used them whenever he wanted. It was a stomach in knots moment when he visited, she says, because she never knew what mood Diddy would be in, whether he would yell or bang on the door or come in smooth. Over the course of her record deal with Bad Boy, Cassie says she recorded hundreds of songs. Some were released officially, some were leaked on the internet, and some just didn't see the light of day. She is asked how many full albums were not released as part of her 10-album deal. She said 9. The decision, she says, was Diddy's. That's so crazy. Why hold all that back? You know, if she had all that, if she had that potential, if the music was good,
She couldn't be a J-Lo.
string her along, right? Cassie testifies that partying with Diddy and freak-offs, or testifies that partying with Diddy and freak-offs took a big chunk of my life. She recalls staying up for days on end, drinking, taking substances, and having relations with strangers. The freak-offs ranged from roughly 36 hours to 4 days. What?
Ooh.
Oh my God. Though they could last longer with breaks. Wait, you mean you would have 36 hours to 4 days with no breaks? Diggity damn.
Wow.
At some point, you got to be like, I'm tired of having the hibbity dibbity. I'm so hibbity dibbity.
How do you walk after that?
Sick right now. I'm so sick of it. If you even say hibbity dibbity, I might throw
How
up.
do you walk
I'm never
after 4
having
days?
hibbity dibbity
Okay.
ever again. I'm done with the hibbity dibbity. I'm going to go pick up this Bible and I'm going to read some passages. I'm done. Don't even touch my hoo-ha. In fact, I don't even want to urinate. I don't want to even
Oh, I know that burn.
no. I don't ever want to see my privates. No.
Oh,
Done.
I bet you them lips swole.
36 hours to 4 days.
Baby,
with no breaks.
ain't no way.
But then if they lasted longer than just 4 days, they would have breaks. Oh my God! That down there would be broken. It'd be like just hanging by a thread, and it'd just be making this weird, rusty noise, like it just needs some oil, baby oil. But you know what I'm saying? That is insane.
And the way he was beating the hell out of Meek Mills back there,
Don't get me wrong. We
baby.
all love the, you know what I'm saying? We all love bumping uglies, but bumping uglies for that long?
Baby.
How can
Ain't
you
no
stay
way.
alert? How can you stay into it too? That is insane. That's some Caligula stuff. Yeah, man. Where did it go? Where did it go? It just disappeared. Damn it.
Ain't no way in the world.
D Beach just said that too. Can you say UTI? Diggity. Damn. Wow. You just drinking gallons of cranberry juice.
Hydrate.
That's all it is.
Dehydrated,
You're
sleep
drinking cranberry
deprived.
juice nonstop. Cause damn, you might as well just put the IV in. Mainline that ish. Call it a day. Damn. So the freak offs became a job where there was no space to do anything else but to recover. Yeah. You're not going to be able to walk for days. Okay?
Right.
You're not going to be able to walk. Sheesh. So there was no space to do anything else but to recover and just try to feel normal again. How do you feel normal after all that? I'm sorry. So she is left for the lunch break and all that. But I'm sorry. Wow. 36 hours to 4 days. And if it goes longer than 4 days, you take a little bit of a break. Jesus. Okay. So now we're more up to date on what's going on right now. Now, really quick, I appreciate everybody in here. Okay, there's a lot of y'all in here. I appreciate all the energy. Thank you so much. Aaron, real quick, welcome to the family. Thank you so much for becoming a member. I appreciate it. And just like Aaron, please consider becoming a member, okay? By simply hitting that join button down below, become a member, all right? Please and thank you, all right? Also, Rook, what up, man? Thank you so much for being a member for we're almost there. Almost 2 years. Thank you. Hi, everyone. What's up, man? What's up with you, Brett? What's good, homie? What's good? What's good, Rook? But anyway, hopefully you guys are all doing well out there. Can you do me a favor, though? It's a simple ask. Where are we at? See a gang y'all in here. I appreciate the love and the interest in this. Come on. Let's what? Let us get, can we get to 2,000K? Can we get to 2K? Hit that like button down below. No one's hitting no nut. I understand everybody's focused because they want to know what is actually going on. All I'm asking for you guys to do is hit that like button down below, please and thank you. And then, of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, okay? Subscribe, because we will be covering this for the duration of this entire trial, okay? You know, especially when it's real, when the big witnesses step up, we are going to be covering it like a mug, and it's going to be coming in hot, okay? So hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, okay? Now, we got to continue on because there's more to this. But before we do that, let me see what Inner City Press has been saying as of late. And then I'll pull that up for you guys as well. But that is insane. 36 hours to 4 days and with no breaks whatsoever. And then after that, it's like, whoa, it's disturbing to me, guys.
Get back in there.
That is disturbing. Sorry, I'm pulling this all the way back so we can see where we are at. Okay, so they say they're back. So this was about 38 minutes ago. So we are fully up to date now, guys. I can't believe I just did that. Get the whoa. Okay, anyway, I'm very proud of myself. Okay, so there's a lot that we still need to cover. There's still a lot going on. Remember, this could be a 4-day, have mercy, a 4-day testimony. So we're going to be hearing a lot from Cassie. This is nonstop, y'all. This is going to be non-freaking stop. So get ready. So they said they're back, okay? So they say, welcome back. What was your manager? Who was your manager at Bad Boy Records? Cassie says, James Cruz. Prosecution says, what did he tell you? Cassie says,
that he was managing me with one hand tied behind his back. He had to check everything with Sean Diddy. So how did you make money if your records weren't being released? She said, I did hosting parties when Sean approved them. So she still had to pass the okay and get the approval by Diddy just so she can make some extra scratch, which is insane. Okay, what comments did Sean or Diddy make about your physical appearance? She says that I looked too Mexican with my hair like that. What? So, how did he like your nails? White, French tipped. Remember, he liked the white nails, nail polish. Remember that. Hair, it varied. I shaved my head in 2009. Your body, he told me to work out. Prepare for the freak-offs. Goo! So basically, he brought her in solely to be his toy, to be his
main
slave.
hooker.
I can't even say the full word, but you get what I'm saying. His slave, right?
His
Clearly,
main hooker.
this is his toy for him to play with, according to Cassie. Told me to work out, prepare for the freak-offs. How did you feel about his comments? She says it varied. What else did Sean pay for? She says cars. Did he give you cash? She says yes. But he would take things away, depending on how he felt. What else would he take away? My self-confidence. What would he take? Who would take things away? Staff. I assume staff. So then defense says, objection. So the judge says, jury will disregard that last answer. Interesting. Prosecution says, I guess who took your laptop and phone? Security. How long? How long would they be gone for? However long I was being punished for. So she being
put on punishment.
He literally would take, oh, you're bad. You're being bad. If you're not gonna fix your face, I'm taking your laptop and I'm taking your phone. Like she's a child, guys. Like she's a child. How often were you in contact with Diddy's staff? Daily. Who are in these photos? KK, Christina Corum, and Miss Fletcher. What did you call Miss Corum? KK. And who's this? D-Rock. He was Sean's security. How frequently were you in Sean's residences? All the time. Did they all have safes? All have safes? Yes. What did you observe in them? Cash, jewelry, cameras, and videotapes. Pew-pews, guns. In New York, LA, and Miami, and Alpine, New Jersey. So in all kinds of places, he had weapons, he had jewelry, cash, cameras, and videotapes in all of these safes. So again, the stories that we've been hearing about Kim Porter and her writing stories, writing in a diary, alleged diary, where she's saying that he had a safe filled with these S tapes and all that. We're hearing it right now, right? We're seeing that she's saying, yeah, he had these safes filled with freak-off tapes, along with cameras and, weapons and jewelry and cash, right? Do you recall an incident between Diddy and Suge Knight? She says, yes. We were having a freak-off in LA. D-Rock came in and said Suge was down at a diner. Sean drove over there. Wow. What was your reaction? I cried. I said, don't do anything stupid. Were you ever handed a pew-pew? She says, yes. We were going to a club in downtown LA. We'd taken shrooms. I was high. I was told to put a pew-pew in my bag. I was freaking out. Oh, you realize this is a big deal because this
J-Lo?
makes me feel maybe, just maybe, this is an inkling or a little bit of a foreshadowing of somebody else coming through. Somebody else who says,
Her love don't cost a thing.
Yep.
Remember? New York, nightclub. She allegedly was given a pew-pew to hold in her purse
Facts.
before walking into a mother-loving club.
And Shane, what's his name? Shane shot.
So the question remains, was J-Lo, who apparently is sober, does not drink, does not do substances at all, at least that's what she says on camera, okay? I'm wondering, was she high as hell when she was given a pew-pew to put in her bag? Because how did that pew-pew show up on that unbelievable, tragic night in New York at that club? Something to think about, guys. Shout out to Natanya Rubin. Something to think about. Something to think about. And maybe, because there has been some rumor, speculation, that J-Lo is coming in. She gonna talk or testify. That's alleged. Don't know if that's entirely true, but you never know now. You never know. But let's move on. So she was high, and she was given a pew-pew to put in her bag, right? She was freaking out, she says. Who was present? A driver, security, and Sean, Diddy. She says, another time I saw them get dressed and grab pew-pews and leave in an SUV. I wonder why. How long were they gone for? She says 30 to 40 minutes. Let me switch topics. How soon into the relationship did Sean or Diddy mention voyeurism to you? She says first 6 months or a year. So within the first 6 months or a year of their relationship, he was already going, hey, yo, girl, I need to show you about this thing that I like call voyeurism. Later called a freak off. Yeah. Interesting. How old were you? At that time, she was 22 years old. Why did you agree to try a freak off? She says, good question. I wanted to make him happy. Where was the first freak off? In one of his homes in Los Angeles.